Welcome everybody to this very special episode of Overlooked and Underplayed, where we are going to look at 2.5 hours of overlooked and underplayed cards. Now this video is made up of a compilation of my other videos, plus at the very beginning I am going to share with you 7 brand new cards that are overlooked and underplayed. So if you've seen all those, you still get something. These videos normally perform very well, so if you could please drop a subscribe. We're trying to hit 20k. I'm trying to make this a full-time thing, so if you could show additional support by checking out the Patreon to submit your deck list for the Friday night deck reviews and submit some of your favorite obscure cards for these lists, you can check out the YouTube membership tab or the Patreon page down in the description to become a member. It starts as low as $1 and it really does help me a ton. I'm really trying to make this a full-time thing. Up first, we've got Mirror Sigil Sergeant, who's 5 and a white for a 4/4 trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a blue permanent, make a token copy of Mirror Sigil Sergeant. Yeah, if you have a blue permanent at the beginning of your upkeep, you get one of these. Then your next upkeep, you'll get 2 more. Then your next upkeep, you'll get 8, then 16, then 32. We all know how good Scoop Mob is, and the fact that this also has built-in trample on essentially infinite 4/4s if you make it to enough upkeeps is incredibly good. That's not to even mention a card like Paradox Haze, which can give you an additional upkeep, which will turn this card's ability into overdrive. But I actually really like this thing if you're in a deck that has access to white and blue and has a Reanimator theme. So I'm guessing like an Esper Reanimator deck. Maybe something like Raffine's Scheming Seer, where you're trying to connive over and over again, fill up your graveyard, put something like Mirror Sigil Sergeant into your graveyard, reanimate it, get it out early, start making tokens over and over and over. Someone board wipes or removes it, just reanimate it again. Pretty awesome. Next, I want to talk about Decoy Gambit. I really like this card. For 2 and a blue, we get an instant. For each opponent, bounce one of their creatures back to their hand unless they let you draw a card. This is actually great. Just your best thing, your best thing, your best thing. Oh, you don't want to lose it? Oh, you don't want to lose it? Oh, you don't want to lose it? Sure, I'll draw 3. You can use it politically, because if any of your opponent's stuff has a powerful ETB, you can be like, hey, I can bounce that back to your hand if you want, so you could replay it and get an ETB. This card is very multifaceted. The most important part is it kind of fills card draw and removal while you're building your deck. It's not guaranteed on either, but it's kind of good either way. And in the right deck, again, like if you're in more of a group huggy deck like Feldegriff. But even outside of that, I think in just a lot of blue decks, this is a strong card. I'm going to pick up a couple of copies and I'm just going to run them and see what I think, because it's a card that I feel like plays better than it looks. Up next, we've got Spoils of Evil. For 2 and a black at instant speed, we get to add 1 waste to our mana pool for each creature and artifact in target opponent's graveyard, and we also gain 1 life for each creature or artifact in their graveyard. Again, in like a Reanimator style deck, you're trying to mill a lot of cards anyway, both yourself and opponent's decks, so a card like this would be pretty good in a deck like that, because opponent's graveyards will have some creatures in them. Like if you're in the Phoenix God deck that's trying to just tap big toughness creatures, mill opponents for a ton of cards, you could run this to just get a huge mana dump on 1 turn. Plenty of artifact decks being played, plenty of creature and graveyard decks being played, especially after the release of Dragons of Tarkir with all the graveyard support in there. I could see Spoils of Evil being fantastic. Even if you're in like something as weird as an Eldrazi deck, people are going to be sacrificing due to the Annihilator. They'll have creatures in grave. You might be able to run Spoils of War to help cheat out Eldrazi's quicker. I don't know. It's just an interesting card. Again, big mana. Gotta try it out. Hyperion Blacksmith is easily the lowest ran card we have ever had on one of these lists, coming in at 36 decks on EDH Rec, which is actually insane. For 1 and 2 red as a 2/2, you can tap it to tap or untap target artifact an opponent controls. Hey, on your upkeep, I'm gonna shut off your Soul Ring if that's okay with you. Our next card on the list is Taunting Elf, and Taunting Elf is 1 green for a 0/1. All creatures able to block Taunting Elf do so. That's not yeah, it doesn't say Taunting Elf must be blocked. No, it says all creatures able to block it must do so. So that is an entire battlefield worth of creatures blocking your elf. If you can give this thing indestructible, then you've got a way to get all your board to bash face guaranteed, because all your opponent's stuff is going to be blocking Taunting Elf. Again, pair this with one of my favorite cards of all time, Sun Titan, and you have a repeatable effect of this, which is really nice. Definitely a me card. I very much enjoy this. Our next card is Threefold Signal, which is an artifact that comes in for 3 colorless. When it enters, you can scry 3, and every spell you cast that has exactly 3 colors has Replicate 3, meaning you can pay 3 as many additional times as you want to copy that spell as many additional times as you want. Endless Detour? Yeah. Pop that off as much as you want. All the 3-color charms? Pop those off all you want. The Ascendancies? Yeah, I'll make multiples of those in my decks. That seems good. Bit of a build around card, but those are incredibly fun to me. I like those a lot, so here you go. So our final multicolor card before we get into the next 2.5 hours of obscure cards is an absolute banger that I cannot believe is an under 10k dex. More than that, cannot believe I've never seen in my life. Herald of Ilharg is 2, a green and a red for a 3/3 trample. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put 2 1/1 counters on Herald of Ilharg. If that spell costs 5 or more, deal damage to each opponent equal to the number of 1/1 counters on Herald of Ilharg. Oh, this is a win condition. Run this. I want to build a deck that can run this as its win con. That's how much I like this card and how powerful I think this card is. That's right up Gruul's alley. This card's disgusting. Absolutely goated card. Pick one up. And with that, I'm going to leave you with the next 2.5 hours of obscure cards. Otherworldly Escort. Otherworldly Escort is 3 and a white for a 4/3 human detective with flash. When it dies, if it wasn't a spirit, return it back into play with 4 charge counters on it. It is a spirit. You can also pay 1 and a white to destroy target creature that dealt damage to you and remove a charge counter from it. I think this is a really annoying pillow fort creature. It flashes in, can get some surprise blocks on people. Really resilient. It just comes right back, and then when it does come right back, it can either block again or just start killing stuff that does manage to get through. Also, just a blink deck, because when it comes back as a spirit with charge counters, you can just blink it to reset it. So you're like, block, dies, comes back, block again. Blink block, actually, because you can do that. Comes back again as a human. If it dies, it just comes back. It's super annoying. I could see it ran in commanders that care about counters too, like Tyam. Although it's not a 3-drop, so I could see it being a little weird in Tyam. Maybe something more like Sparrow. Maybe like the Falco Sparrow guy. You can remove counters to play stuff off the top of your deck. Something to consider. Frozen Aether is one that I have seen countless times. Never went to EDH Rec for it because I'm like, this one's ran a ton. People know about this card. It's under 10k for some reason, so here you are. 3 and a blue for an enchantment. Your opponent's creatures, lands, and artifacts enter tap. Not yours, just theirs. Slows down aggro decks to a crawl, which is great because you're probably going to be running it in like a pillow fort or like control deck. Shuts down the tables at the deck that are trying to use like 1,000-year elixirs, tap untap engines. Not a ton to say about this one. Probably going in my Amanatu list because that's an enchantment pillow fort deck that I'm working on. You guys will get a deck tech for that soon. I have a ton of deck techs lined up, so you'll get that soon. Throw it into something you're trying to play more of a control-y, tempo-based game like Send Triplets. Emperor of Bones, I know it's new. I know that's why it's underran. It's too cool to not talk about, so we're talking about it. It's 1 and a black for a 2/2 skeleton noble. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile a card out of a graveyard. It also has adapt 2 for 1 and a black, which means if it doesn't already have a 1/1 counter on it, you can pay 1 and a black to put 2 1/1 counters on it. It also has if 1 or more 1/1 counters will be put on it. If any of the stuff you've exiled with it is a creature, you can go ahead and put that creature into play under your control with a finality counter and crack it at the end of turn. It gains haste. Very strong. It's a bear that gets bigger for the mid game, brings back even more stuff for the late game. Graveyard hate as well. It doesn't have to be a creature card you're removing. I think this is really good. It also doesn't have to be the 1/1 counters from the adapt that triggers the ability. So if you put this in something like Gave Guru Spores, that's really good. Start removing 1/1 counters from Gave or from Emperor of Bones, and then keep actually, this is way better than I even thought. Adapt triggers if it doesn't have 1/1 counters on it, and Gave can remove 1/1 counters to make 1/1 Saprolings. So you remove the 2 counters from this, make Saproling, sack a Saproling, put it on Emperor of Bones, remove a 1/1 counter from Emperor of Bones to make a Saproling, sack the Saproling, put a 1/1 counter on Emperor of Bones. You're swinging with all the big stuff you've been exiling. This seems great in like a graveyard deck. I could also see this putting in absolute work in Marchesa, the old conspiracy one. I think it's the Dusk Rose. I can't remember for 100%. The one that gives all your stuff dethrone, which gives it 1/1 counters, and if stuff with 1/1 counters on it die, they come back. This seems like it'll put in work in there. Just be super resilient, super annoying. Super good, comes out early. Total War. This is a card for people that truly believe that math is only for the blockers, and ironically enough, also a card for people that believe in absolute neutrality. Do not attack anyone. I'm just trying not to take damage. Whenever a player attacks with 1 or more creatures, everything that didn't attack, that's not a wall, or didn't enter that turn, dies. So if it can attack, and it didn't, well, then we're just gonna have to teach him a lesson now, aren't we? It gets smoked. So if you want to really speed up the game, not bad. Also, weirdly enough, kind of good in a pillow fort shell. So if you also don't want attacking to happen, this is pretty good because the opponents can just choose not to attack and then this never happens, which is also good. That is doing something. We're not getting attacked anymore. So if you're in a Jeskai Pillow Fort, you're running your propagandas, you're running your ghostly prisons, you're running your total wars, and you're just already making it hard for them to swing at you. You know what? Okay, since we're on the topics of super annoying cards that just make the game a slugfest, we'll talk about Freyalise's Wind. Freyalise's Wind is 2 and 2 green for an enchantment. Whenever a permanent becomes tapped, it gets a wind counter, and then the next time that permanent would untap, instead you just remove all wind counters. So yeah, you better really want to use the thing you're tapping, because you're not going to be untapping it until a turn after the next turn. Now, this really begs the question, what deck would this be good in? And that begs the answer, I have no goddamn idea. It's super weird. It's a cool card. It reads like it could be good in something. Sometimes I just got to give you guys homework, and here is yours for the night. What would this card be good in? It's just cool and annoying. Again, I don't want to be a broken record. It would be pretty good in Pillow Fort, but I feel like there's something that's really niche this would be pretty good in. This is my favorite card. This is my favorite card on this list. If there's one card that you should walk away considering, I think it's this one. It's really annoying. There's a lot of Pillow Fort cards on this list now that I look at it, and it has nothing to do with my Pillow Fort Amanatu deck I'm working on, I swear. Sunstone is really fucking good. It's 3 for an artifact. You can pay 2, and you can sacrifice a snow land, and you can prevent all combat damage that's dealt this turn. Maybe for some of you novices watching, maybe you don't know what a snow land even is. It's a snow-covered basic land. They're basic lands that also say snow on them. You might ask, can those be used to cast normal spells? Damn right they can be. So there's absolutely nothing stopping you from replacing all of your basic lands with basic snow lands, and then having this as like an extraordinarily annoying fog effect just to spitball. Lord Windgrace. You replace all your basic lands in that deck with snow-covered lands, and now you have a card that will just completely hose any kind of combat that's trying to beat you, while also putting lands in your graveyard that you can replay with Windgrace to trigger your landfall abilities, to then sack again to the Sunstone. I think this is gross. Even just in like a Pillow Fort deck, if you replace your basic lands with snow-covered basic lands, this will probably put in some work. More than anything though, the lands matter decks, I think this is just a great way to get lands in and out of graveyard. For one, pair it with your Crucible of Worlds, but for two, you're not getting hosed by any kind of creature strategy at all. I think this one's definitely something to consider. I would look into it a little bit because this seems like it's very good. I have one more new card. This is the last one on the list, I promise. This is the last new card on the list, I promise. Again, too cool, had to talk about it. Unshakable Tail, I really like. 2 and a black for a 3/2 zombie skeleton. When it enters the battlefield or during your upkeep, you surveil one. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, you get to investigate, so you get card draw for milling creatures. Reneb the Harvester? It's probably going into Neb. I'll just get that out of the way. You can also pay 2 and sacrifice a clue to get it back from your graveyard into your hand so you can recast and you can surveil some more. I like this thing a lot, actually. It's cheap. It puts stuff in your graveyard. It gives you card draw for doing the graveyard thing, which I think a lot of cards don't necessarily do. This is a perfect spot that Teneb kind of needs filled right now. I've got Morbid Opportunist. I think Unshakable Tail is just a great addition to that package of like card draw while also being a part of a graveyard deck. My cousin actually just made the brand new Lazav deck that cares about cracking clues to turn them into different stuff. This actually seems really, really good in there. Great way to get clues onto the board, put stuff into the graveyard. Definitely an addition that you should consider putting into the decks like those. I'm really curious about this one. If any of you guys have ran it, let me know how it played. I'm going to be picking one of these up next time I go to the store, putting it into Neb. So I will be letting you know how it plays as well, if you don't get to me first. I've got another one that I really don't have that much to say about other than like, I don't know why it's underplayed. It seems pretty good. Probably because it's niche and maybe a dead card, but I have some things to say about it. Harmonic Convergence is 2 and a green for an instant. I didn't even realize it was an instant when I saved it to this list. That's also pretty nuts. You put all enchantments on the top of their owners' libraries. So if you're in a deck that doesn't have that many enchantments, you can just completely get all those off the board. All those enchantments that are causing you problems, they're all off the board. And they're also replacing your opponent's draws now. So your opponents are just going to be drawing into those enchantments they just had in play. Even if each opponent only has 1 enchantment, their next draw is going to just be a thing they already had in play. Really annoying, as well as being a board wipe for one of the harder things to get rid of, which is nice. Now, I probably would recommend this in like a Gruul deck, a Jund deck, something with red in it so you can run looting cards like Thrill of Possibilities. So if maybe you're not against the decks with a lot of enchantments, you can still discard this to be drawing cards. I think that's a great way to get away with running some more toolboxy cards in your list, is running some more looters. I think it's definitely worth a try in casual. I know I said Sunstone was my favorite. It might be War Barge, because I'm a Natu, I'm sorry. For 4 mana, we get an artifact. We can pay 3. Target creature gets Island Walk until end of turn. If War Barge were to leave the battlefield this turn, the creature that you gave Island Walk dies. Hey, you're putting one of your creatures on a boat, that's why it has Island Walk, but if someone destroys the boat, your creature sinks. and I'm like, oh no, I don't want my creatures to sink. That's why I'm not going to be using them on my creatures. You can do this as many times as you want, and all those creatures die, and blinking counts as War Barge leaving the battlefield. So, put this in my Amanatu deck. I drop War Barge, I dump all my mana into giving a bunch of threats Island Walk. All my opponent's threats get Island Walk, you're welcome. I use Amanatu's -1 to blink the War Barge, all that stuff dies. And I didn't even lose War Barge. I can do that again next turn. Whenever new threats come in, I can do the War Barge blink, and they're gone. Can someone get rid of that? Sure, of course they can. Most everything dies to removal, but that's pretty strong if you can get it going. Super excited to play test, because I think if we can get it out and get it firing off, it's really gross. I feel like a good place to stop here is Dimir Machinations, because it has Transmute, and you guys love Transmute. You soak your drawers over it, and this is under 10k decks. So one, disappointing. You should be disappointed. 2, just a good card. Maybe you overlooked it. For 2 and a black, we can look at the top 3 cards of target opponent's library, and we can exile any number of those we want. Is that a great card? Not really. Is it annoying against scrying and like tutors that put stuff on top, or like if you run bounce spells? Yeah, so there is uses for it, but it has Transmute, which means you can just pay 1 and 2 black in this case to search your library for a card with the same CMC, that being 3, and then just put it into your hand. You need that 1,000-year elixir? Trying to get that happily ever after going? Laboratory Maniac? Just go transmute it up, buddy. Not to even mention if you're in like a Spellslinger deck that can like recur this card and get it back to your hand, you can transmute again because all you have to do is discard it. There's a ton of removal spells that cost 3. There's a ton of card draw spells that cost 3. There's a lot of good stuff you can get with this card. Reverent Mantra. Or Mantra. Reverent Mantra is 3 and a white for an instant. You may remove a white card in your hand from the game instead of paying its mana cost. All creatures gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. This one slaps! An obvious good piece of protection that can potentially come out for free, but what's not to be forgotten is that this thing affects everyone's creatures, so you could potentially use this thing as a political chip or as a wide protection from board wipes like Blasphemous Act. This is also great for getting in some really solid attacks on some of the 1 or 2 color decks at the table. Name one of their colors, bash face. Or if you're really not in a good spot to swing, use this on one of your opponents that are in a good spot to swing. Maybe someone else can get a good swing in on one of your opponents. As with all cards that you can potentially cast for free, tapping out with this in hand is really strong because opponents will play haphazardly thinking you'll have no responses to anything they could do. No real specific interactions or commanders with this one, outside of stuff like 8.5 tails maybe. Switch a creature's color to help with the protection, I guess. Definitely one to try out. Our blue card for the list is Rimewind Cryomancer, which is 3 and a blue for a 2/3. You can pay 1 and tap it. Counter target activated ability. Play this ability only if you control 4 or more snow permanents. So, hear me out, boys. Basic snow lands can be used to cast normal spells as well as snow spells, right? So if you just replace all your basic lands with snow basics and then slot this card in, this card can be turned on very easily, and then boom, you've got an activated ability counterspell engine. Pair this with the right list that has plenty of untap engines like 1,000-year elixir, and you've got a really controlling creature on your hands that can stop those activated ability-focused commanders like Kenrith from doing their thing. Plus, it can just stop some of the most powerful cards in the game. Staff of Domination? No, sorry. Isochron Scepter? No. You're trying to equip that Skull Clamp? No. I think this card could be really strong. Speaking of could be really strong, let's move on to our black card, which is Insidious Dreams. For 3 and a black, we get an instant. As an additional cost to play this spell, discard X cards, search your library for X cards, and then put them on the top of your library in any order. This one was recommended a few weeks back by a member of the community. I swore it was on Patreon, but I guess it wasn't because I couldn't find it. If the person who suggested this wants to drop a comment, that'd be great. Also, if you'd like to have a direct hand in suggesting weekly obscure cards, make sure to become a patron. It starts at $1, and you can send me some of your favorite obscure cards to put on these lists. This one's actually pretty nice at instant speed, as you can play it at the end of someone's turn and draw one of your cards that you just tutored, essentially just acting as a tutor. Of course, this has the added benefit of like all your follow-up draws are going to be pretty good, if not the best draws you could get. This is interesting. I kind of like this thing in my new 5-color Tazri Reanimator, as it loves having lands and creatures in grave, and Tazri, as my commander, mills the top 5, so being able to possibly set up exactly what I'm going to mill is actually really good. Not to even mention decks that care about like revealing off top like Yuriko or playing off top. Solid ass card, honestly. Keep in mind the discarding as an additional cost is pretty rough if the spell gets countered, but hey, we're going fast, we're going furious. So is Pyrostatic Pillar, our red card of the list, which is 1 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a player plays a spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, Pyrostatic Pillar deals 2 damage to that player. I really like this card. It's a great form of defense against Spellslinger Storm decks and people just trying to get a little too aggressive at the table. I could almost see a Jeskai Group Slug Pillow Fort deck where you run stuff like Propaganda to keep aggro off you, along with cards like this and Zozu the Punisher to keep a timer on all the opponent's heads, while you just sit behind your wall of Pillow Fort. Actually, just run Pramicon Sky Rampart as the commander and just sit behind all the previous stuff, plus a literal wall as your commander that forces people to attack other people. Speaking of attacking other people, I could also see this in a Goad deck, as those decks promote people playing creatures. The earlier the better, more attacking going on, great, seems not bad in there. Any deck that likes to put timers on people could definitely utilize this, and honestly, cut those Shrieking Drake chains out, man. Alright, we get it. You're playing a 1-blue that bounces itself over and over and over again. Pyrostatic Pillar would like to talk to you for 15 minutes. The green card for today is Lifegift, being 2 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a land comes into play, you may gain 1 life. This is interesting, because life gain is pretty weak, but this one's interesting as it triggers off every land that enters, so your life total could potentially get out of hand pretty quick, especially if there's a land deck at the table, or if your deck cared about life gain in increments, like, you know, pair this with Bilbo. I could genuinely see you getting enough life to trigger him pretty quick, especially paired with other life gain cards and life gain benefits like Veto to get damage in on opponents. If you're in like a Jund deck, I feel like this could go into a really niche, really cool deck. And if you thought of that deck, drop a comment. Our multicolor card for the list is Circle of Despair, being 1, a white and a black for, you guessed it, an enchantment. Pay 1, sacrifice a creature, prevent all damage to any creature or player from any one source. I really like this sack outlet, actually. If there's a Voltron deck at the table, that commander's not going to do damage to you anymore. Or do damage to other people, like as a political chip. Or just any big threats at the table, like Blightsteel Colossus. You know, don't even try it, buddy. Of course, this is going in an Aristocrat or Token deck where you have plenty of access to creatures and sacrifice. Also, if you're just in a Mardu deck, you can use this paired with Blasphemous Act to get a pretty nice pseudo one-way board wipe to protect all the stuff you don't want to die. It's definitely an interesting one as far as sack outlets are concerned, and the fact that it's in black-white. It's probably going to go in all the decks that it could be used in, so definitely one to give a chance. And finally, our colorless card of the list is Crumbling Sanctuary, being 5 colorless for an artifact. For each 1 damage that would be dealt to a player, that player removes the top card of his or her library from the game instead. I dig this effect, man. No pun intended. The fact that this is global is kind of nuts. Like, if you're in a mill deck, everyone's damage just turns into mill, and you're a mill deck, so you really don't plan on doing damage anyway. This is going to turn the game on to like 12 out of 10 speed. Every smack from a Corvold, every ping from a Goblin Bombardment, every trigger of a Sanguinary Priest all turns into mill, which could be an easy win condition in a mill list, with plenty of counter magic to help your stuff stick, help protect Crumbling Sanctuary, maybe throw in some of those Pillow Fort effects like Ghostly Prison or Propaganda we talked about before. I don't know exactly what the power level of this thing is, but it is a really interesting card that I wanted to share with you guys, so here you go. Gobble it up. Tainted Sigil. Tainted Sigil is 1 a black and a white for an artifact. You can sack this artifact to gain life equal to the amount of life your opponents have lost this turn, which could potentially be a lot of life, especially when you like knock one of those players out, which in a life gain deck, not too hard to get some big life gain combo going off. Knock a player out, sack the Tainted, gain 40 plus life, set yourself up to win the game. But my weird brain immediately went to a life gain tie-em deck. Like, if you had a tie-em deck based around that, this is actually good because you could just dish out damage, sack your Sigil, gain a bunch of life, and then use tie-em to remove some counters, replay Sigil, crack it to gain a bunch of life, rinse and repeat as many times as you can do during a turn. Pair this with something like, I don't know, Sanguine Bond, and you could be doing some pretty good damage outside of the combo itself that Sanguine Bond has in every deck. This could also provide a pretty good source of damage. Laid to Rest is 3 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a human you control is put into the graveyard, draw a card, and whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, gain 2 life. This is underran for 2 reasons. 1, it reads like a tribal human card, which, I mean, it is good in those decks, and 2, gaining life as the reward for having 1/1s on stuff that's dying, not really a good reward. I totally get that. Kind of just erase that second part. That's not really there. We're gonna focus on the whenever a human we control dies, we draw a card. This is actually really good if your commander just makes human tokens. Like if you're in the green-white Taurens deck, you're making tons of human tokens, and if those die, now you're drawing a ton of cards. Or if you're in like a mid-power level Aragorn, the Uniter deck, I don't know if those even exist, this could be good because he also makes human tokens. You'll be drawing cards for those dying. Funnily enough, my friend Deegan runs both those decks, so I mean, maybe. Here you go, Deegan. Although he's becoming a little CEDH spike, so I don't know if you'll have time for little obscure cards like this anymore. What happened to the Viral days? What happened to the Shatter Gang days? You changed. Killing me on turn 3 with Sisay. Let's talk about Theft of Dreams. I think I talked about this back when I was doing daily card highlights, and I'm going to start weaving some of those back into these lists because that was when I had like 2K people on the channel. We've got like 10,000 more people here now. So I'm going to start weaving these back into the channel. This one's a gnarly one. 2 and a blue, sorcery. Draw a card for each tapped creature target player controls. This is one of those ones where you almost feel like you misread it. No, you read it right. If there's a token deck at the table that just swung at you with 14 1/1s, go ahead and drop that during your turn and draw 14 cards for 3. That's pretty good. Even if there's 2 creatures tapped. This is just a divination at its worst. If there's 4, that's 3 mana to draw 4. That's a good going rate. I don't know if you've heard, that's a good going rate. Not a ton to say here. Really strong card advantage if you're in a creature heavy play group or you find yourself versing creature decks a lot. I would give this a try. I'm going to be throwing it into my Taval deck. I'm running Quick Study in a couple of my decks, so I'm going to be taking those out for this and trying it out. It just seems pretty good. Next, I want to talk about a card that I actually posed for the artist to paint. I wasn't going to tell you guys this, but I was involved in the creation of this artwork. Transit Mage. Back when I had my hair shaved, I actually posed for this card, ripping a guitar. I think it came out pretty good. Transit Mage gets far less respect than all of its other magey brothers like Trinket Mage and stuff like that, and I think that's heresy. I think it's absolute betrayal. The other one search for some cheap artifacts. I get that that's a little bit spikier. It's a little bit better. This one searches for 4 or 5 drops. So hey, if you want to grab that Panharmonicon, you grab that Panharmonicon. If you want to grab that, I don't know, 1 ring, go grab the 1 ring. You know what I mean? Maybe this isn't as casual as you guys thought it was. Even something as simple as like a Solemn in a casual commander play group, not a bad mana curve. Turn 3 transit into turn 4 Solemn into turn 5 6 drop. I know it's a little fair for some of you. I know. I think there's a lot of like fun casual stuff you can grab with this card, and if you're in a blink deck, you can grab a bunch of that stuff by blinking Transit Mage. Just a suggestion, you know what I mean? If you're super spiky, maybe outside of getting the 1 ring, there's not a ton of use here. If you're more casual to like mid power level, mid high power level, I think this is fine. I think there's plenty of good stuff you can find. Next, I want to talk about Powder Ganger. Yeah, this is just a red Rec Sage, except it doesn't remove enchantments, but the trade-off is it has squad for 2. So as many times as you're willing to pay an additional 2 when you cast this, you'll get that many tokens that are copies of it. This seems like a great way to handle multiple artifact threats. Again, you can blink the original one to keep destroying stuff, which is always nice. If you're in a token deck that runs stuff like Doubling Season, you'll get double the amount that you squatted for, which is awesome. And again, these are tokens, so stuff like Harvest Season, I think that's what it's called, or Abundant Harvest, whatever the 2 and 2 green make a token for each token you control card is, that's great, because you can just get even more of these. Definitely a good one. I think you guys should check it out. Along with our next one, Muraganda Petroglyphs. Sorry if I butchered that name. It's kind of a fake word anyway, so it doesn't really matter. 3 and a green for an enchantment. Creatures with no abilities get +2/+2. This will buff all of your tokens with no abilities, as long as you're not making like 1/1 birds with flying or like soldiers with vigilance. As long as they're vanilla tokens, they will get a +2/+2 buff for 4 mana. This is a global effect, so everyone's vanilla creatures get +2/+2. So you could put this into like a group hug deck where you're trying to give other people tokens with stuff like maybe a Crowan Horse. But I really do think this shines in just a token deck where you're running vanilla creatures, and also obviously the bear deck. If you're just in a deck that is a bear deck, just running as many vanilla creatures as possible, this is clearly going to be great. I think 4 mana to give a 2/2 buff though in a token deck is actually an incredibly strong going rate. That'll probably take out a player or 2 the turn you play it, as well as providing that buff permanently until someone gets rid of it. So I think it's pretty solid. As do I think Junk Jet is solid. I don't even know if that was English. Junk Jet is definitely very good though. For 1 and a red, we get an equipment that equips for 1. We always love when equipment's equipped for cheap. That's always a good sign of a good equipment. When it enters, we get a junk token, and we can pay 3 mana to sacrifice another artifact and double the equipped creature's power. So if you're in a, I don't know, treasure deck, this is nuts. We all know how easy it is to get big mana outside of treasures with stuff like Bergie or Jessica's Will, but if you're in a treasure deck, even easier to get big mana. You could dump a ton of mana into this, crack 3 or 4 tokens, and your commander, or whatever big thing you want to be swinging with, is easily big enough to take someone out. Let's say like Magda. If you're in the Magda deck, you're getting a bunch of dragons, you're making a bunch of treasures, you can now throw this onto one of your dragons, stack your treasures to be doubling that dragon's power and toughness. I think that could take some people out for sure. Definitely a good card. As is Isolated Watchtower, which is a land that taps for a colorless. It enters untapped. You can pay 2 and tap it, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If that card's a land, you may put it into play tapped as long as a player controls 2 more lands than you. So I don't really have to spell this one out for you. Mono white is pretty much where this is going to shine. Maybe even a mono blue deck. I feel like you have enough card draw in blue to see the little mana rocks that you would run in that deck. Mono white, I think this is really going to thrive because you don't have a lot of card draw and you're not going to have a lot of mana ramp. The mana ramp you do have is going to be rocks, so if there's any green table at the deck, I think you can get this thing to consistently fire off for you. There is countless games, even outside of a mono white deck, where I would have killed to have this land, where I'm just getting mana screwed off top, and this land would have came in extremely helpful, even outside of the putting a land into play. Just being able to like scry with it at the end of people's turns to help me get a land possibly is useful. Not a lot to say here. If you're in the mono white deck, again, possibly mono blue, but there's a lot of card draw in a mono blue deck, mainly mono white. I would try this out. And finally for this video, I want to talk about Fumulus, the Infestation. I think he's from Battle Bond, so that might be an explanation for why he's so underplayed. For 3 and a black, we get a 2/2 flying death touch. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, we get a 1/1 insect with flying, and then whenever like slugs, insects, it's like a bunch of gross stuff. We really only care about the insects. Whenever they attack, the opponents lose 1 and we gain 1. So if we get a lot of insects, we're going to be draining a ton, hitting for flyers, having really good blockers as well. All this just for players sacrificing creatures. So if you're in the aristocrat deck and you plan on sacking a lot of non-token creatures in that deck, this will be pumping out a ton of tokens, which you can then follow up and sacrifice as well to trigger all your death trigger stuff like your Blood Artist and things like that. Or if you just happen to be sitting at a lot of tables with aristocrat decks or a lot of people sacrificing creatures, this could just be passively firing off for other players as well. This is my favorite kind of card. If you watch my channel, you know I absolutely love cards that just passively produce tokens. If those tokens can be 1/1 flyers, that's the best. Bitter Blossom's one of my favorite cards of all time. And with more and more sacrifice-based creatures getting introduced to the game, I think this is just going to get stronger and stronger over time. Not to even mention this as a commander, like as an aristocrat commander, could definitely be extraordinarily strong. But again, like all the cards on these lists, just some stuff that's under 10k that I felt the need to shout out to you guys. Crackdown is 2 and a white for an enchantment. Non-white creatures with power 3 or more don't untap during their untap step. Initial thoughts. Alesha, who smiles at death. She loves small creatures. A deck like that would be great for this card. This card would be great for a deck like that. A token deck where you don't plan on making your tokens much bigger than 1/1s, and those tokens are white, so if your deck's making 1/1 like soldiers or humans or something like that, this could also be very useful. I don't really see this being ran outside of like a 1, maybe 2 color deck, although I do really like it in Arcades if a lot of your walls are white, because Arcades makes it so they deal damage equal to their toughness. Almost every wall has like 0 or 1 power. That could definitely be a pretty cool piece of tech in a deck like that. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Aura Thief. Aura Thief is 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. When Aura Thief dies, you gain control of all enchantments. What's that say in brackets? You don't get to move auras. That's a killer one. That's a real good one, isn't it? Yeah, our next card's going to be Token Slaughterer. When it enters, destroy all non-tokens. Whoops. Besides the insane name miss on this card, really good. All the enchantments in play become yours. If you're running a piece of like board wipe for enchantments, try swapping it out for this. I like this in something like an aristocrat deck where you're going to be running plenty of ways to sack anyway. Just put this creature in there, sack it to a sack outlet whenever the board's full of enchantments. Have that in your back pocket. Trigger all your death triggers anyway. Oh, you smothering Tithe? Let Papa have a taste of that. I like it. I think it's pretty fucking good. Moving on to my favorite card of this list, we've got Dark Blast. Dark Blast is 1 black for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1, and it's got Dredge 3. Now, is it hitting for the -1/-1 to kill stuff a lot of the time? I don't know, Esper Sentinel. I don't know, Orcish Bowmaster. Some annoying tokens. I'm more into the fact that you can pay 1 black during anyone's turn and have Dredge 3 consistently in your grave every turn for 1 black. And then if any of those 1 toughness things show up anywhere, you just take them out with it. I'm picking one of these up for my Taval deck. I'm definitely going to give her a go. Throw her in the cart. We're giving her a go. Yep. Put the mayo back. Put it back. We're giving it a go. Ah, shit. We can get this and the mayo. Put the mayo back in there. Moving on to Needletooth Raptor, who is 3 and a red for a 2/2. Whenever Needletooth Raptor is dealt damage, you deal 5 damage to target creature an opponent controls. So, not a lot to say here. Pinger deck. Anytime someone plays something with 5 or less toughness, that's a pretty sizable creature if it's hitting 4 or 5. You can just send one of the pings at your Sawtooth Raptor and then go ahead and just shoot that thing for 5 and be like, yeah, sorry. You know what? I really don't even mind if Sawtooth dies this turn. I'll shoot it again and kill your other thing with 5. If I have to mention this is good in an Enrage deck, what are we doing here? You know, our next card comes from Big Dog from over on the Patreon, who suggest Primal Growth. Primal Growth is 2 and a green for a sorcery. With Kicker, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a basic land, put it into play. If you played the Kicker, search your library for 2 basic lands and put them into play. Couple things here. 1, sacking stuff. Again, what are we really doing here if I gotta tell you this, is good in a lot of decks. Having a way to just sack something on a whim, even on a spell that's a one-time use, is very useful in certain decks. 2, getting 2 lands for 3 mana, pretty good going rate. That's not a bad going rate in this game. You've effectively shaved 1 mana off Explosive Vegetation. This also causes the lands to enter untapped, which is very good because then you can just chain that into like a 2-drop Mana Rock, an Arcane Signet, something like that. I like this a lot actually, so great suggestion, Big Dog. Always appreciate you. Again, if you want to suggest some cards for these lists, you can check out the Patreon. Starts with low as $1. Let's move on. Up next is Sawblade Skinripper. It's what I called my girlfriend back in high school with braces. Ayo! She never wore braces. And I never had a girlfriend. Sawblade Skimmer is 1, a black, and a red for a 3/2 creature. With Menace, you can pay 2, sacrifice another creature or enchantment. Put a 1/1 counter on this creature. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacrificed 1 or more permanents this turn, this creature deals that much damage to any target. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you sack creatures or enchantments or whatever the hell you can sack with this thing. You could make 13 treasure tokens and sack them all and deal 13 to everybody at the end of your turn. And you might go, oh, Nick, that's what Mirkwood Bats does. That's what Marionette Master does. Sure, this one deals damage, so you can give it lifelink. It also gets bigger with 1/1 counters on its built-in sack outlet and has Menace. I don't know. I think that's somehow also very good. I love this if you're in the blood token deck, the treasure deck, the junk deck, the food deck, the clue deck, anything like that, where you're just cracking a ton of those permanent tokens. Yeah, you could throw this in there and it will be tearing the flesh off your opponents. Yeah. And lastly, for you filthy stacks players, I always tack them onto the end of the videos because I don't want you seeing them. We've got Storage Matrix. Storage Matrix is 3 for an artifact. As long as this artifact is untapped, each player chooses artifact, creature, or land during their untap step. That player can only untap permanents of the chosen type this step. I know so many of you are like, oh, like so pumped about it that no one can do anything. But yeah, it really makes people not able to do anything really well. If you're in that deck where you're like, hey, I run all artifacts in this deck. Yeah, and I'm thinking even too specific. If you're running just like mainly creatures, even like a token deck again, I kind of like this because you're like, I'm gonna keep choosing creatures, and if anybody else wants to do anything about my tokens, you're gonna have to pick something other than creature like 90% of the time.
Guardian of New Benalia. Guardian of New Benalia is 1 and a white for a 2/2 with Enlist. As this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning Sickness. When you do, add its power to this creature's power until end of turn. Whenever Guardian of New Benalia enlists a creature, scry 2, discard a card, Guardian of New Benalia gains indestructible until end of turn, tap it. At its worst, this thing is just a 2/2 bear with tons of upside, so yeah. As well as being a way to card fix in white, which is really good, especially if you're card fixing with combat, because white does combat pretty well. And it does card fixing not so well. So this card helps a ton with that. The enlist mechanic's also kind of cool. If you've got another creature that has a big power that you just want to staple onto Guardian of New Benalia and maybe Rogue's Passage it to get through for some free damage. Most importantly, it is a discard outlet, which is incredibly good. This is going to go into Neb for all those reasons I just listed. I run Rogue's Passage. There's a bunch of huge creatures in there. It's small, so I can hit it with Sun Titan. It's a discard outlet. I also really dig this in Alesha Who Smiles at Death because that's just like a small creature reanimator deck. Need I say more? I needn't. We go to the next one. Up next, we've got Ravenguild Master. Ravenguild Master is 1 and 2 blue for a 1/1. Whenever Ravenguild Master deals combat damage to a player, that player removes the top 10 cards of his or her library from the game. Listen, I'm not a mill player. That seems extraordinarily powerful. Every time this creature connects, you mill 10% of their deck. Now, if you're in a milled strategy that has graveyard sub-themes, like you want to play stuff out of people's graveyards, maybe not the best option. If you're in a purebred, pure blood mill deck that's just going for 0 cards in the opponent's deck, this does not seem bad. I also really like this in Lobotomy deck. We talked about it on the channel. You can click up there to watch the video. It's pretty much a mill deck, but with like exile. It's about picking apart every piece of the opponent's deck, exiling it so no one can ever use it. This seems perfect for a list like that. Not necessarily my style, but if you dig it, try it. If you thought of a deck for it, comment it, okay? Okay. Shout out to Luke Dodo over on the live stream for shouting out Tombstone Stairwell. That was incredibly hard for me to say. That was like my 13th take. I have no idea why. Tombstone Stairwell is 2 and 2 black for an enchant world, which is just an enchantment. Cumulative upkeep, 1 and a black. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player creates a 2/2 Tombspawn token for each creature in his or her graveyard. They have haste, sacrifice them at the end of turn. Shouts out to Luke, because this is nuts. This is a very good card. As Luke and a ton of other people shouted out in the chat, this is obviously very good in Aristocrats. It's creating a ton of bodies for everybody, every turn, and then auto-cracking all those bodies for all your death triggers. Nuts. And yeah, the cumulative upkeep is going to be a little bit difficult to keep up with. They should have called it cumulative keep up. But paying 2 mana, 4 mana, 6 mana, it's realistically not that hard to see this thing sticking around for 3-4 turns. And with how strong it is, you probably won't have a problem with it sticking around for that many turns. Not even to mention some of the interactions with some sack outlets like Altar of Dementia, Ashnod's Altar. It's just really gross. Great suggestion. Now the only downside of this card is it is a reserve list card and it is $20. So if your playgroup is cool with proxies or you just got your chore money, pick one of these up. Coming in at the red slot is Marton Stromgald. Marton Stromgald is 2 and 2 red for a 1/1. Whenever Marton Stromgald attacks, other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 for each other attacking creature you control, other than the man himself. And whenever he blocks, he does the same thing for blocking creatures you control. This is very gross. I don't understand why it's $5. I feel like if this got printed with a new name, it'd be a pretty good card. For 4 mana, that's pretty gross. That's like Craterhoof levels of gross for 4 mana. And it does it on blocks, and it's a +1/+1. It's not a +1/+0. I don't have a lot to say about this guy. I literally have that written down right there. I don't have a lot to say about this guy. He's just strong. Like, if you're in a creature deck like Jetmir, here you go. Now, this one is also on the reserve list like the last one we went over, but this one has a way lighter price tag at only $5. So, again, maybe you did a little less chores this month. Maybe you worked that 9 to 11, went home early. Either way, pick it up, put it in the cart, ship it out. Which you should also do with Bygone Marvels, because Bygone, it's good. For 2 green, we get a sorcery with Descend 8. When you cast this spell, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, copy this spell twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Bygone Marvels. Kinda similar to the last one. Really strong. The double green is about the only thing I can see a problem with this, and that's not even a problem because lands are so good. Mana Rock, bleh. Now having 8 permanents in your graveyard, I think Teneb could do that. I think you could do that pretty nice. I think a lot of decks could do this, actually. Lands Matters decks would probably love this card. Reanimator decks, Spellslinger decks that are kind of grave-based. I think the card's just sick. Getting to copy this effect 3 times, by the way, is insane. When I put this on the list, I thought it just copied itself once, and I was like, love it. And then I was like, oh, copies twice. Jeez, man. 2 mana to get 3 permanents back from your graveyard. If you are in a playgroup where the games go a little bit longer, maybe you're in a Battlecruiser deck where it's designed to go a little bit longer, this card's great. Try it out. Okay, so for our multicolor slot is my vote of the grossest, most underutilized, obscure, under the radar, you need to go pick one of these up now, uncommons that came out this year. It's disgusting. Flotsam and Jetsam. Not only does it sound gross, the card is gross. The Flotsam side of it is 1 and a hybrid Simic for an instant, mill 3 cards, and then investigate. And the Jetsam side is 4 and 2 hybrid Dimir for a sorcery. Each opponent mills 3 cards, then you may cast a spell from each opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a spell cast this way would be put into graveyard, exile it instead. Yeah, no, I'll leave it back up on the screen. You could go ahead and read it again. I've had to read it a couple times. I'm like, it has to say like you can cast it and mana can be spent as though, no, cast it for free. Okay, so it only cast 1 thing. No, it cast from each opponent's graveyard. Oh, so out of the 3 cards they milled? Nope, out of their entire graveyard. Okay, I think I'm piecing together what the downside is. It has to be an instant or sorcery, right? No, anything. Enchantment, creature, artifact, any of it. Have fun. And then just stapled onto it is an early game card draw spell if you want to use it for that, which I've used it for many times. I played the Jetsam side of this the other day in my new Tassiger Spellslinger deck, which I'm working on the deck tech. That's coming soon. And my god, it's Nostradamic how good this card is. I felt the need to end that last one very grandiose, because the last card on the list, not very grandiose at all. I'm gonna be honest, I like the name, I like the art, and the effect is playable. That's the hoops for this one. This one being Thran Weaponry. Thran Weaponry is 4 colorless for an artifact with Echo. During your upkeep, you have to pay its mana cost or sacrifice it. You may choose not to untap Thran Weaponry during your untap phase. Pay 2, tap it. All creatures get +2/+2 as long as it's tapped. So again, I really like the art. It just gave me like such an old school art feel that I used to love, and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, I actually really like this art a lot. Love the name. I love the old like brown border artifacts. A lot of this was sentimental, but then I read it and I was like, Goad deck, not bad. Put this in a Carter Doomscourge deck, and you're like, yo, so you guys are going to be attacking each other permanently, because I'm going to keep finding ways to replay Carter. Yeah. So I thought, why not give your whole board a +2/+2 buff while you guys are smacking face? And then when the time comes for me to have to smack face, I tap it during my turn, find a way to blow it up during yours. I think there's some kind of play space for it. Again, I just really like the card. It gave me like a good vibe. I said, you deserve to be on the list because you have a good vibe. I said, you're a good card, you're so fast, you're so smart, you're so cute, you deserve to be on the list because you have a good vibe. Hey, thank you.
Heavenly Blademaster. Heavenly Blademaster is 5 and a white for a 3/6 flying double strike. Whenever Heavenly Blademaster enters the battlefield, you may attach any number of auras and equipments you control to it. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to Heavenly Blademaster. This is one of those cards that makes me want to build a whole deck around it. It would be really cool to run like an aura equipment deck, like for example, Galea, Kindler of Hope, with the token sub-theme, to flood the board with tokens using cards like Mary, Warden of Isengard, to end games with Heavenly Blademaster's giant buff. There's also space for this to be pretty good in a roll token deck. For example, Elevir of the Wild Court, where you can use cards like Siona, Captain of Pyrostatic, paired with Heavenly Blademaster, again, for a massive board buff. Keep in mind, Heavenly Blademaster does not have haste. This thing looks like me trying to run a mile back in high school, so boots and some haste, probably going to be a necessity if you want this as a win con. Flying in for the blue slot, we got Rishadan Brigand, which is notably a weird card. For 4 and a blue, we get a 3/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent unless they pay 3. And it can only block creatures with flying. Yeah, this one's super strange. But for how niche the ability is in blue, it's definitely worth considering, especially if you're in one specific deck. If you've got an Orvar, the All-Form deck, running some blink effects like Planar Incision, along with this thing, yeah, that's a lot of these triggers going off. I'd also say more often than not, people are pretty efficient with their mana, more often than not leaving 2 mana open to threaten a counterspell, making this guy's ability pretty easy in my eyes to have go off. Same goes for like a lower power Yurok deck, as that deck runs some blink effects, you get double of this guy's triggers. Not to even mention pairing it with something like Deadeye Navigator to machine gun some board wipe. Honestly, this thing's pretty buns outside the mono blue blink deck or something specific like that, but again, cool for blue. Saravok Deathbringer comes in at the black slot for 3 and a black, being a 3/4. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanents left the battlefield that turn, that player loses X, where X is Saravok's power. This one's super interesting, as I could see it being ran in a group slug list, like Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls being another piece that can deal sizable damage to opponents if they don't have permanents leave the battlefield. But I think building a deck with this guy is where you'll get the most value. The build I was thinking is Saravek with Noble Heritage background, giving us protection from certain players that accept our deal of 1/1 counters, letting us sit behind Saravok for damage. Past that, running fog effects like Batwing Broom and Holy Day will prevent creatures from dying and leaving play during combat, while cards like Everybody Lives can give everyone's creatures hexproof and indestructible to make sure we can get some Saravok triggers. I think this build would also run a ton of sack lands like Myriad Landscape, Terramorphic Expanse, so that you could play the political game. Saravok only cares that a permanent left that turn, it doesn't care about whose permanent it was. So if you keep these sack lands open, you can start making deals with people for you to crack the land, prevent the Saravok trigger. Throw in some buff cards like Blackblade Reforged to make Saravok huge, and you've got some real big damage going on to people. I think this is actually a really cool build. Tuxel over on Patreon suggests Hearth Charm as our red card for the list, which is 1 red for an instant. You can choose one. Destroy target artifact creature, or all attacking creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn, or target creature with power 2 or less is unblockable this turn. Yeah, I like this card. It's a pretty decent piece of artifact creature removal, which is a little specific, but it also provides a +1/+0 board buff for anyone's board. So if you're in a political or like group hug deck, I could see you using it that way as well. You can also put this thing underneath Isokron's Scepter, if that's something you're interested in. I could see this being used if like another deck's playing tokens, swinging at one of your opponents, you go ahead and just buff their board so you can take one of your opponents out. Cool card. Tuxel will be fed his Salisbury steak tonight. The magic gods are pleased by this offering. Nantuko Cultivator is our green card for the list, which is 3 and a green for a 2/2. When Nantuko Cultivator comes into play, you may discard any number of land cards from your hand. Put that many 1/1 counters on Nantuko Cultivator and draw that many cards. This card's just good. I swore I'd talked about this before on the channel somewhere, but I cannot find it anywhere, so I'm talking about it again. Being able to dump a grip full of lands and draw cards is actually pretty nutty. And I know all about dumping grips, especially in a Lands Matter deck. Think of having 5 lands in your graveyard and playing Creeping Renaissance into this dude. 5 lands in hand, 5 more card draws in hand, a 7/7 in play. This card just feeds into the Lands Matter cycle so well, especially if you've got something like Dimir Sabertooth to just keep reusing it. Pretty solid. For our multicolor slot, we've got Viral's the Scar Striped, which is 1, a black and a green for a 2/2. Each creature card in your graveyard has Scavenge. The Scavenge cost is equal to its mana cost. Sacrifice another creature, regenerate Viral's the Scar Striped. This card is actually really, really gross. It's such an old card that I assumed it was a little bit weaker than I thought it was, and that it was ran in more decks because it's been around for a while. But nah, neither. Giving your whole graveyard Scavenge gives you a ton of value, especially if you don't really mess with recursion. You're not running a lot of it. All your creatures just make your future creatures bigger. Pair this effect with like the Ozolith, and your power just stays on board for generations. You're building up some generational wealth here. He also has a built-in sack outlet on him, which I don't know how I never noticed. This guy's just awesome. Not to mention, if your deck has cards like Death Shadow, you can get a really cheap Scavenge for a ton of 1/1 counters. A lot of cool stuff you can do with this guy. Definitely check him out. Speaking of definitely check them out, Apocryphite is our colorless card of this round, and it is sick. For 2 colorless, we get a 1/1. If you played it from anywhere other than your hand, it enters with 3 1/1 counters on it. So it's 2 for a 4/4 if you play it from anywhere other than your hand. When it's put into your graveyard from play, remove it from the game with 3 times counters on it. In the right deck, this thing's really sweet, being only 2 mana for a 4/4 if you don't play it from hand. This isn't that bad to hit in a lot of just like play off top, play from exile deck, but there are certain commanders and cards that this interacts with really well. Decks like Rocco and Lelia both care about playing cards from exile, but also care about 1/1 counters, so the decks will already be running stuff like the Ozolith or All Will Be One, which when paired with Apocryphite is actually really nice. This could also be a somewhat win con in like an Amy Pond deck along with extra combat, so you can keep having it re-enter and then crack it and re-enter and crack it alongside like a sack outlet and an All Will Be One, maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but I really like this card. I think it could go in some decks and be really solid. Feels like an untapped powerhouse. Let me know what you guys think of it. And with that, we wrap up this week's Overlooked and Underplayed. If you want more lists like this, along with deck building advice, deck techs, and all sorts of different MTG content weekly, be sure to check out the channel. And if you dig it, subscribe. If you want to show some additional support to see more videos like this, like the people on screen have, head over to patreon.com/C/NixLotus, or click on the link in the description. Huge shout out to our patrons. You guys seriously help me out a ton. Make sure to check out some more videos over on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Later, guys. Sephara Sky's Blade for $3.83 ran in 1,642 decks. Sephara Sky's Blade is 4 and 3 white for a 7/7 flying lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying have indestructible, but what makes it really good is you can pay a white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay its mana cost. So theoretically, this could come out pretty early. Providing board-wide protection for any creatures that have flying can obviously be really strong in the right deck. Token decks like a Layla Artful Provocateur would like mesh really good with this card. Having a commander like a Layla that makes all these tokens with flying, casting Sephara by just tapping 4 of these tokens that have flying is not out of the realm of possibilities for this thing to come out turn 4, 5. Keep in mind this card does not provide protection to itself, so you might want to focus protection pieces in its direction. There's also the fact that this thing could be the commander itself. Like if you're looking for a mono white flyer deck to run all your Midnight Haunts in, you freak. Our blue card for the week is Time of Ice for 11 cents, ran in 8,988 decks. Time of Ice is 3 and a blue for an enchantment saga. Chapter 1 and 2 tap target creature an opponent controls for as long as you control Time of Ice. They do not untap during their controller's untap step. And then Chapter 3 returns all tapped creatures to their owner's hands. Now, I'm not a huge saga guy, but this saga right here, I could definitely see this in like a Pillow Fort deck. And every time I use that word, I get 1 or 2 comments of people that are like, what does Pillow Fort even mean? 1, wizards. That kind of highlights an issue. Highlight Pillow Fort more often. I guess Pillow Fort kind of falls under stacks, but not really. You're just preventing combat, nothing else, whatever. We'll talk about that another time. A Pillow Fort deck is a deck that isn't trying to be attacked. Being a perma tap for 2 creatures, then a bounce to said creatures, this card interacts really well with certain cards like Cryptic Command, which could be used as a counter spell, and then the second option could be used to tap all creatures target player controls in conjunction with Time of Ice's Chapter 3 to bounce their full board while leaving yours intact. Not to even mention cards like Hilda and her Crown, which are all based around tapping down creatures, which again interact really good with Time of Ice. Our black card of the week is my all-time favorite board wipe. I've never even looked up how many decks this is ran in because I like it so much, and I'm shocked that it's in under 10k. We've got Life's Finale for $2.92, ran in 8,800 decks. For 4 colorless and 2 black at sorcery speed, destroy all creatures, then search target opponent's library for up to 3 creature cards and put them into their graveyard. Then that player shuffles their library. This is easily my all-time favorite board wipe. Some of the coolest art on a card to this day to me. Also, I think the first appearance of the Eye of Sauron just like convince me if I'm, or tell me if I'm wrong. This card smacks from personal experience. Like, I understand there's other options for board wipes that are either cheaper or provide like a broader range of removal than Life's Finale, but they don't provide the same specificity of removal that Life's Finale does. You pick the Spellslinger player, rip out all 3 of their creatures that can recur instants and sorceries. You target the Reanimation player, don't target the Reanimation player. You know, I think in most case scenarios, there's a pretty good set of creatures you could rip out of someone's deck that's going to be pretty annoying to them. Or just use it as a bargaining chip, again, with the Reanimation player at the table or someone that has a piece of recursion in their hand to be like, hey, what if I give you that creature you want in your graveyard? What are you going to do for me, pal? What are you going to do for me, Life's Finale? Our red card for the week comes from the Patreon supporter Grayson Mionis, who suggests Mirror Style Master for 13 cents, ran in 8,031 decks. Mirror Style Master is 4 and 2 red for a 3/3 with backup 1. When this creature enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end of turn. Whenever this creature attacks, for each attacking modified creature you control, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of those creatures. Exile those tokens at the end of combat. First thing, I never noticed that backup puts the counter on target creature, so it can be placed on itself if you don't have a target. Just a note. You got counters on creatures, you got equipments and auras. Those creatures are going to get copies as long as they're attacking alongside Mirror Style Master. And with the backup effect, you'll get 1 guaranteed token of another creature you have in play as long as you plan on attacking with both, which is actually really nice. I'm going to have to playtest with this thing. Obviously, it would be so nice if this thing had haste, so some haste enablers are going to interact really nice with this. Super neat card, Grayson. Love it. Life Finds a Way is our green card of the week. For $6.05, ran in 9,198 decks. For 2 and a green, we get an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, populate. You got big boys that are making tokens? Yeah, this'll do you good. If your commander's a board anthem, this is insane, because creatures that wouldn't normally enter as 4 or greater will now trigger Life Finds a Way. This makes me want to rebuild my Kolfanor tribal anthem deck. Also really good in Atla Palani, who makes eggs and then cracks the eggs to get really big creatures off top to then populate your eggs. Yeah, really strong. I think it's just because it's from the Jurassic Park set that it got overlooked, under 10k. Give it a try. Our multicolor card of the week comes from Aaron Allard over on Patreon, who suggested Counterpoint. For 13 cents, ran in 5,897 decks. Counterpoint is 3 a blue and a black for an instant. Counter target spell. You may cast a creature, instant, sorcery, or planeswalker spell from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to that spell's mana value without paying its mana cost. A classic counter spell, except, not at all. This one's actually really sick. For 5 mana at instant speed, you pretty much get like a recursion piece, a reanimation piece, which is really cool. As a reanimation player, I like that I have a counter spell that can be reanimation. This is probably going to go in my Tazri deck. I'm going to give it a try. Thanks, Aaron. Our final colorless card of the list is Voyager Staff, coming in literally just under 10k decks. It's probably over 10k by the time the video comes out. For 15 cents, for 1 colorless, we get an artifact that we can crack and pay 2 to remove target creature from the game and then return it into play under its owner's control. It's colorless blink. It's colorless protection from someone stealing one of your creatures because you can just blink it back under your control. It's blink for other people's stuff, so it can be a political piece. I think this card's definitely something to let you guys be made aware of. This in Conjurer's Closet is a little blink package that like any deck can run, which, I think is cool. Not to even mention creatures or commanders like Glissa the Traitor that can return artifacts to reuse that normally don't get access to blink. Pair that with some powerful ETBs and you got some, I think some really unique builds. Charitable Levy, this one comes in from Tuxel over on the Patreon. Charitable Levy is 1 and a white for an enchantment. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, put a collection counter on Charitable Levy. Then if there are 3 or more collection counters on it, sacrifice it. If you do, draw a card. Then you may search your library for a Plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. White has tons of these like keep up cards. Like if you have less planes, search for a planes. If you have less creatures, search for a creature. This one reads kind of like those, but this is just better. If you're in a creature heavy deck, probably a mono white deck, maybe a 2-color deck. I think this is a great option because making non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. 1, won't affect you as much, and 2, makes your opponent's mana rocks and rampant growths and mana ramps like Cultivate cost 1 more. So it'll slow them down, while also, when you get enough counters on this thing, accelerating you I do think this is a really cool catch-up piece. It also says Plains card, so any of like the snow lands that say both of the land types on them or like shock lands, you can search for those lands with it, which is also a really good bonus. Again, I like this thing in like a mono white list where you're trying to catch up with people because mono white is gonna need to catch up a lot of the time. I also don't mind this in something like Tameshi because when you crack it, you can just get it back with Tameshi and just keep mana ramping with it, keep drawing a card with it. I like this card a lot, Tuxel. Up next is our blue card of the list. Magus of the Unseen is 1 in a blue for a 1/1. You can pay 1 in a blue and tap it. Untap target artifact an opponent controls and gain control of it until end of turn. It gains haste until end of turn. When you lose control of the artifact, tap it. This is really cool for how little decks it's ran in and the price tag on it. I think it's just old and kind of has fallen through the cracks. I think my cousin Keaton's gonna like this one. He kind of likes those gimme that cards. This one's extra good because it gives back the artifact tapped, so they aren't able to use it until it comes back around to them, or if you pass into them, they aren't able to use it until a full rotation, which is good. Keep in mind you can target untapped artifacts with this. The artifact doesn't have to be tapped. This interacts really well with untap engines like 1000-Year Elixir. Obviously, you're stealing multiple artifacts. If you're able to like sack those artifacts before you give them back with something like Braids, that seems really good. But obviously, Obeka Brute Chronologist is where this card's gonna be awesome because you just get to keep the artifacts by ending the turn. Super good there. Underrated as hell. I think this card's very good. So going from a very, very good card to a card that I'm not sure how good it is. I do think it's annoying. I do think it's underplayed. We got Larceny in the black slot. For 3 and 2 black, we got an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card from his or her hand. This triggers once per creature, so if you're in like a token deck or a go-wide deck, this is going to be a ton of discard. It could be a game ender by just draining resources from everybody. This seems really good in Tiny Bones, where you're trying to get people to have empty hands and discard cards with a very small aggressive commander. That seemed like a no-brainer to me. The fact that it's a 5-drop is about the only thing that turned me off about it. I still think it's a really good effect though, especially in black where there's a bunch of mana doublers like Crypt Ghast, there's Dark Ritual to help rush it out, effects like that. So, you know, I thought I'd bring it up. In an attempt to kind of dip my toes into more diverse strategies on these lists, I have a group slug card for our red card. Charging Cinderhorn is 3 in a red for a 4/2 with haste. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no creatures attacked this turn, put a fury counter on Charging Cinderhorn, then it deals damage equal to the number of fury counters on it to that player. This is really good. It's doing everything group slug wants. It's accelerating the game one way or another. If you don't attack, you're going to be taking more damage. If you do attack, good, someone's taking damage, and we're speeding this game up. It's also a 4/2 haste, so you can just bash someone in the face, and you have an attacking creature guaranteed within itself, which is awesome. I like this in something like Xantcha Sleeper Agent, where you really don't do that much attacking yourself, so your turn, you're going to be stacking counters up on this thing to be promoting other people to attack on their turns. It's a fun card. I thought if you were on like a budget group slug list, I think this is a great option. Speaking of great option, if you guys like Shrieking Drake, the 1 blue 1/1 that can bounce a creature, you just pretty much use it to bounce itself over and over again, and then like trigger your Guardian projects with it, for example, draw a bunch of cards. Greenbelt Rampager, yeah, run this too. It's really good. For 1 green, we get a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, pay 2 energy. If you can't, return it to its owner's hand and you get 1 energy. This is just another great 3-piece ETB. You get 3 ETBs off 1 creature. Again, Guardian Project 3 times. You're paying 3 mana for a 3/4 and 3 card draw. Pretty good. This seems really good in something like Karametra because she doesn't have access to blue, so she can't run Shrieking Drake, even though she'd love to. So you can run Greenbelt Rampager instead, get 3 mana ramps off of the Karametra. That seems like super good. It seems like it has a spot in quite a few decks. Yeah, that's 3 casts for something like Ave Progenitor Ooze, the big mono green commander that has Storm that creates copies of itself that are non-legendary when you cast it. It seems good in there. You get 3 casts. I definitely think it's a card to try out. Coming in at our multicolor slot, we've got Shipwreck Singer. I remember seeing this card when it came out in Theros, reading it and being like, eh. And I read it now and I'm like, I actually don't hate that. I don't hate it as much as I used to. I think it's actually pretty decent and in the right deck, pretty annoying. For 1 in a black, we get a 1/2 flying. You can pay 1 in a blue. Target creature an opponent controls attacks this turn if able. Or you can pay 1 in a black and tap it. Attacking creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. I don't think this is bad. If you're in kind of a pillow 40 deck, this will help soften the blow by making all their creatures -1/-1. If you're in a goad deck, this will help goad things by making them attack. It's a political tool. If one of your opponents is swinging at another opponent with like a ton of 1/1 tokens, for example, you could say to the token player, hey, if I don't make your whole board, if I don't wipe your whole board and let you smack him, would you be willing to use blank to let me draw a few cards? cards. Or vice versa, the person that's being attacked by the token player, hey, if I do wipe his board, what could I get from you? She's early enough and supplies enough utility that I definitely think that I'll be trying her out if I make a deck that suits her. Anything that says target, I think about the new Marchesa that has the ability to fix your draws and then draw you a card every time you commit a crime. Because every time you pay 1 and a blue on Shipwreck Singer, you get a Marchesa trigger, which, you know, that actually seems really good. So if you're in like a Marchesa political go deck, this seems pretty good in there. Again, not 100% sure where it goes. I do think it should go somewhere though. That is not the case for this final card. I think this final card's very good. I think I know exactly what kind of deck this is going to go in. I just really wanted to share it because 1, I like the art, 2, I love the name, 3, the effect's really strong. Boom. And 4, it's really old. So it's like everything I really like about this series. Coming in at our colorless or artifact slot, we've got Credit Voucher. Credit Voucher is 2 colorless for an artifact. You can pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice Credit Voucher, shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your library, then draw that many cards. Not bad, trust me. I understand there's tons of effects that just let you discard as many as you want and then draw that many, that let you wheel out a hand. They're not colorless. This goes in any deck. So if you're in like a wheel deck or you're a guy like me, which I kind of am getting the inkling you guys kind of are, you're creative deck builders and you might need to have access to a tool like this. You're like, oh my gosh, Nick, how did you know? I've been working on my white-green wheel deck that has been really difficult to get to work, but Credit Voucher's perfect for that. I definitely think there's value to shouting out cards that could at all help anyone, or maybe even give you guys like a challenge where it's like, I want to build a deck where Credit Voucher becomes very, very good. Even in something as simple as like Emery, Lurker of the Lock, I think this is pretty good. It's just a reusable fix my hand. You know what I mean? It's like if you have 4 cards you're not going to get any use out of in the mid-late game, Credit Voucher, draw 4 more cards, get it back with Emery, play it again, and reset. You know what I mean? You're fixing all your draws pretty efficiently. If you can't afford your scroll racks and you're in like the Emery deck or the blue artifact deck that can, you know, tap into recursion like that, I think this is actually pretty useful.
Commander's Insignia, which is 2 and 2 white for an enchantment that gives all your creatures 1/1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone. So, if you're in like a Ragrock deck, that's more of like a casual deck, or maybe in like, I don't know, the new Extus deck I'm working on that focuses on the back side of Extus, the Blood Avatar side, that costs 8 total mana, but costs 2 less for each creature you sack during it. It may be a sorcery, but it does count as you casting your commander. And with that deck being a token deck that's just based around spamming the Blood Avatar and sacking tokens as many times as we can, Commander's Insignia might be pretty good at buffing those tokens an insane amount, as casting the sorcery Blood Avatar does count as casting our commander. Making it just like a really... Hello? Yeah? Well, I don't care how many women are waiting for me to call them back. I'm talking about cardboards to these important people. Yeah, I do care that much about them. Sorry, guys. Our blue card for the list is Patrician Geist, which is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flying. That gives all your other spirits 1/1. Stick with me. It also makes all spells you cast out of graveyards cost 1 less to cast. So if you're in like a Muldratha list, or in the new, I'm going to look through my Tazri deck because I just put it in here, the new Sultai Commander, Kotis Sibsig Champion, which is just like a better version of Ghost Chieftain, except it doesn't cost 8 mana, and it does the same thing, and it has access to blue. Kind of feels bad for me. Doesn't feel bad for Patrician Geist, though. That's really good in decks like that. So, if you're in a graveyard-based deck, you're casting a lot of stuff out of graveyards, even like Flashback and stuff like that would be affected by this card. I think this is a really great choice. This card would have been a perfect fit for my cards that are not just one deck wonders video. If you want to check out that video, it's in the top right corner. As this seems like it would have just gotten labeled as a spirit card, but then if you keep reading, you're like, oh, that's pretty good in my graveyard decks. Our black card of the list is Draugr Necromancer, and you guys have recommended me this card to infinity and back, and I, for some reason, haven't put it on a list yet. So here you go. For 3 and a black, we get a 4/4 that whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, we exile it with an ice counter, and we can cast anything with ice counters on it and use mana as though it were any color, as long as the mana we're using is from a snow land. And if you're not aware, snow lands tap for basic mana. They're no different than a basic land, except for that they say snow, and they affect cards like this card. So if you want to run Draugr Necromancer, replace all your basics with snow, this thing's going to pop off. This is probably going to go in my Tazri deck, because one of my favorite plays in that deck, I think I have it right here, yeah, it's playing Linvala and giving my whole board indestructible, and then dropping a board wipe. So having Draugr in play during that would be insane. Wiping all the opponent's boards and then just, you know, cast whatever you want that's the best. It's pretty nuts. So is Aspect of the Mongoose, if I'm being real. I was shocked I haven't talked about this card yet. I looked all over my channel. I couldn't find me talking about this card. So here it is. For 1 and a green, you give enchant creature Shroud. But the kicker is when this enchantment goes to the graveyard, it just goes back to your hand. So 1, in like any green deck, a 2 mana Give Shroud is a pretty good rate. 2, if you're in an enchantment deck, like my Go Shinpei deck, insane. Because if anyone does manage to get rid of the creature with like a board wipe or something, or exile, your Aspect of the Mongoose will still hit grave and then just go back to your hand. And that's another enchantment for you to play with all these enchantresses in play to draw you cards and all these other triggers. Very good. If you're an enchantment deck, Aspect of the Mongoose might be a fantastic way to keep some of your important creatures safe while also giving you a recurable enchantment. I think that's pretty much a win-win. For the first time in one of these videos, the red card is actually my favorite card of the list. Actually shocking. Impending Flux is 2 and a red for a sorcery. You deal X damage to each opponent and each creature they control, where X is +1 the number of spells you've cast this turn from anywhere other than your hand. And it's also got Foretell for 1 and 2 red. So it itself will add 1 to that X if you foretell it. And if you're in a deck like Prosper, you're going to be casting plenty of stuff from exile. Seems like a pretty good 3-mana one-way board wipe. Or another commander that popped into my head was Feldorn Dreadwolf Herald, which is all about just flooding the board with tokens and casting Mage from exile. So one-way board wipes in that deck, that could be a win con. Moving on to our multicolor card for the video, we've got Improbable Alliance, which is a blue and a red for an enchantment. Whenever you draw your second card, no matter the turn, you create a 1/1 blue fairy with flying, which in my opinion is like the best shit in the world. Like having 1/1 flyer tokens is so good. You block everything. You feel so much safer. And getting that for just drawing a second card in a format with Ghostly Pilferers and Rhystic Studies and plenty of ways to draw extra cards, as well as a 6-mana loot attached to it. Is that overcosted? 100%. 6 is ridiculous. I like this thing a lot in Gavi Nest Warden because it's all about just running cycling cards, and those cycling cards now cost 0. So drawing your second card during other people's turns is a breeze in that deck. Not to even mention Arjun the Shifting Flame, which wheels you every time you play a spell. So if you're dropping an instant during each opponent's turn, Improbable Alliance is triggering all of those turns. Definitely a good way to get it to fire off. Not 100% on where this goes. I really like the card. It's under 10k decks. Wanted to show it to you. And then finally, our colorless card for the video is Mishra's Self-Replicator, which is 5 for a 2/2 artifact creature, which, you know, not the best going rate. But the fact that it has whenever you cast a historic spell, you may pay 1 and make a copy of it. I feel like in a casual historic deck, whether that be artifacts, legendaries, or sagas, this could be a win con. I could just see this really getting out of control, and especially in like a casual game where games tend to go longer, all your excess mana can be spent on just making more and more replicants, which I think is really cool. Keep in mind, you can only do this once per replicant, but once you start getting more, it exponentially grows and you will flood the board with these. Not to even mention, you're flooding the board with an artifact, which is incredibly useful. It can be used in a ton of different combos, which is incredibly useful, super synergistic with a bunch of different cards in artifact deck. You love a good artifact entering the battlefield in those decks, and with Replicator, you got a ton of them.
Static Snare. Ironically, the same name I give myself when I pinch a nerve in my groin. For 4 and a white, we get an enchantment with Flash, and it costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. When it enters, exile target artifact or creature until Static Snare leaves. Instant speed, potentially 1 white exile. Again, you could throw this along with your Swords to Plowshares and your Path to Exiles if you're in a creature-heavy deck, or you tend to verse a lot of creature-heavy decks. Something to keep in mind, this counts the amount of creatures attacking, not just your creatures attacking, or an opponent's creatures attacking. This can be used offensively, defensively, and it's also an enchantment. So if you're in an enchantment deck like a Nixthia, where you're running all of the enchantresses to draw cards, using a Nixthia to reanimate enchantments out of your graveyards as 3/3s, Static Snare is fantastic because it'll just be 1-drop removal that can come back or remove again as a 3/3. Take your hands off the keyboard, all right? Because I already know you're typing, so we're just putting brand new cards on overlooked and underplayed list now and saying that they're overlooked and underplayed. Yeah. Up next is a Feto Runecaster submitted over on Patreon from G. Manaldo. If you'd like to submit your own cards for these obscure lists that we do on the channel, consider becoming a Patreon or channel member. Starts as low as $1. A Feto Runecaster is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 wizard. Whenever a card's turned face up, you draw a card. Now, this is actually really good nowadays. I could see how this got overlooked over the years passing by, because for a lot of years, it was just like Morph and then like Megamorph, which is really just Morph with like a sequel name stapled onto the front of it to get us hype. But we've got a lot more of these now. On top of those, we've got Manifest, Disguise, Cloak, Manifest Dread. We've got like at least 6 different ways to flip creatures now whenever we want. I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm missing now. So you're running a Trotta, Deadly Fugitive, you're cloaking stuff all day, throw this in there. You're playing Kadena, Slinking Sorceress, where you get to play all your face down stuff for free. I really don't have to mention that one. That's incredible in there. Jeez. Even Zamone, Mystery Unraveler, like a cool Simic build where you're manifesting Dread. This would go hard. And Monaldo coming in with an absolute home run. Appreciate you. So our black card today, again, comes from Patreon, from Lore, and he suggests Illicit Masquerade. It's 2 and 2 black for an enchantment. It has flash. When it enters, you put an imposter counter on every creature you control. Whenever a creature you control with an imposter counter on it dies, exile it and return a creature from your graveyard into play. Lore. You're making my shorts tighten up, Lore. Oh, this is going in like all my decks. All of them. 1, this doesn't say non-token. So yeah, all your tokens will all just crack to bring back something from grave. So yeah, in my Taval Reanimator self-mill list, where I am literally just milling myself, creating tons of 2/2 zombies, this is incredible. This is insane that this is in under 10k decks. Pick one up. And if you see Lore out in public, give him a hug for me. You know what? No consent, give him the hug. So let's talk about our red card today. We've got Mercadian Downfall. For 2 and a red at instant speed, attacking creatures get +1/+0 for each non-basic land the defending player controls. Now, obviously, if you're in like a Krenko deck, this is pretty good. You can just swing out with your goblins at like any of the multicolor decks at the table and pretty much guarantee get like a 3/4/5/0 buff or more for 3 mana, which is insanely powerful at instant speed. But more so than that, I really like this in a goad deck where you're running stuff like Disrupt Decorum, because you can just wait for someone to swing at someone else with the most non-basic lands, drop this because it gives 1/0 to all attacking creatures, not just your attacking creatures. Political, good for aggro decks, good in goad. Instant speed buff, always good to sneak in some wins. I actually really like this. And when I play this, I've got one question for my opponents. How are those Ping, Fast, and Urza's lands treating you, douchebag? Because I played this for 3 mountains. All right, moving on. You guys know Telepathy, right? 1 blue, enchantment, makes everybody play with their hands revealed, ran in over 20,000 decks on EDH Rec. You guys like it a decent amount, I would say. It's fairly popular. Let me introduce you to Revelations. I don't even have to read it. It's just 1 green for the same thing Telepathy does. 1 green, everyone plays with their hands revealed. I think that could be used pretty efficiently. Throw this and Telepathy in your like Sirdan Shipwright deck, so you can like see everyone's hands and know when you should be attacking to get that to trigger. Plus, you can make more political deals now, because you can be like, hey, I'll swing with Sirdan only if you promise you play that thing out of your hand. Or just like a Glunch deck, like the Any Austin Glunch deck I made. I actually could see this going in there just because it's funny and just because it feels like a Glunch kind of fair thing to do, to be like, no, you actually have 3 ways to draw cards in your hand, so I'm gonna give the draw to him. You have ways to buff, so I'm actually gonna give the buffs to him. You don't have any mana ramp, so I'm gonna give you the treasures. I feel like that's a really good use for this card as well. Just a cool card. Revelations is a cool name, really cool art, awesome ability. I thought it was weird that Telepathy had over 20,000 decks and this one has way under 10,000 decks. I get that it's in green. I still think this is very good and can be utilized. Next card. Okay, so our multicolor card of the day is Baron's Spite, and I actually might run this into Vol. I actually really like this. For 2, a blue and a black, we get a sorcery. You choose 2 target creatures controlled by the same player. That player sacks the first one and bounces the second one. Pretty good removal. 4 mana to get 2 pieces of removal. Not bad. The bounce can also be used politically. You could kill one thing that's a threat, but be like, hey, I have to remove that, it's a threat. This does have a built-in bounce though, so I can bounce your ETB thing. Just, you know what I mean? You can kind of soften blows a little bit with this card, which I like a lot. You can also use it on yourself. If you're in an aristocrat deck that happens to have ETBs like Grave Titan and death triggers that you're trying to get triggers off of like Blood Artist with, this is pretty good because you can bounce your own thing with an ETB and then sack your other thing that has a death trigger. It's very versatile on top of just using it as straight removal. I actually kind of like this in my cousin's Brea deck because it's literally just like a bounce toolbox deck, and this seems like a great piece of removal to use on other people. I could totally see him using it on himself to like sack 1 Thopter and bounce Brea back to his hand to replay Brea to get all these triggers to do a bunch of damage, create a bunch of treasure tokens. You know how that bullshit artifact deck goes. And finally, our colorless card of the day comes again from Patreon from Daniel Kozik, who suggests Bottled Cloister. For 4 mana, we get an artifact. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, we exile our hand. At the beginning of our upkeep, we return all cards exiled with Bottled Cloister to our hand and draw an additional card. Now, I'm gonna be honest, when I first read this, and still not great in a lot of decks because people could just kill it and shut down your whole deck, but Daniel, he's a big brain guy. He's willing to think a little bit deeper on this type of stuff. He brought up the fact you could use this in a Hellbent deck and keep your hands empty during all the opponent's turns, which actually can be really useful. You could get a bigger buff for your creatures with stuff like Nihilistic Glee during opponent's turns, deal more damage with a card like Twin Wind Strike on opponents' turns. I think you actually could do some pretty decent stuff with this that's interesting. Not to even mention a deck where it's built around giving opponents bad shit. You could just give one opponent Bottled Cloister, and then if you have a way to switch it to the next opponent and then the next opponent, you can have everyone ditch their hands. That could be really annoying. So if you're in like a Blim Comedic Genius deck, I think this is also really, really good. Not to even mention if you're building like some kind of weird Blim Comedic Genius Theft Hellbent shit. All right. Well, there's probably going to be a Blim Comedic Genius Hellbent Gift Bad Shit deck on the channel soon. So get ready for that. I actually like this thing a lot, Daniel. So I appreciate you submitting. Inner Sanctum for $1.38 ran in 452 decks. Inner Sanctum is 1 and 2 white for an enchantment with cumulative upkeep, pay 2 life. All damage dealt to creatures you control is reduced to 0. Obviously, my brain immediately went to this plus Blasphemous Act, and then you like get to keep your whole board. But also maybe in something like Fire Song and Sunspeaker, where all your instants and sorceries gain lifelink, so, you know, all those Blasphemous Act and damage-based board wipes will be gaining you a bunch of life, so the cumulative upkeep won't be such a big deal. You could also throw some Children of Corliss effects in there, where you can crack them, gain life equal to the life you lost if your cumulative is getting a little too out of hand for you. I also don't hate this in something like my Goshinte Shrine deck, because if we don't want to pay the cumulative, we can just let it die and then get it back with Goshinte's ability if we need it. That's the best card ever. No. But it's pretty interesting, and I know you guys are smart enough to come up with something. So for the blue slot on the list, we've got Armguard Familiar coming in at 2 cents in 2,686 decks. 1 in a blue for a 2/1 with Ward 2 and Reconfigure for 4. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has Ward 2. Outside of just being good protection, it's extremely good in a deck like Arna that can spit out tokens that are copies of permanents attached to modified attacking creatures, which, you know, making a bunch of copies of this thing seems pretty good. Or in a deck like Taunos the Toymaker, if you have a way to keep blinking the Arm Guard. Also, Reconfigure's just good. Someone board wipes, removes anything like that on the creature it's attached to, you just get a 2/1 with Ward 2 that you can then throw back onto something when you play it later. Always good. I'm always shocked when I see a card that's from an old set I was really into that I had no clue existed. This is one that is a graveyard-loving Reanimator Fiend I'm shocked I haven't heard about, and I really like it. And yes, it's probably going in Ghost Chieftain. Cage Morrow, First to Suffer, is $3.36 and is ran in 1,949 decks. It is 3 and 2 black for an XX. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. Pay a black, sacrifice it. All creatures get -X/-X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. I really like this in something like Carador, because instead of running a instant or sorcery board wipe, you can just run this instead and keep reusing it out of grave. Same thing goes for Muldrotha the Gravetide. Those both seem fantastic. This is also pretty decent with Feign Death triggers, because you can wipe the whole board, and if you're wiping the board, that means Cage Morrow's pretty big, and you get to keep a big guy. That's always something to keep in mind. But really, it's just a board wipe on a creature that you can resurrect, sacks itself. So our red slot, I don't know about it. I know it's not the strongest card, but I really do have a weird soft spot for fling effects. I've tried to build a couple fling decks. It's not really my playstyle, but I really like the effects still. So here's Heartpiercer Manticore. For 2 and 2 red, we get a 4/3. When it enters, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Heartpiercer Manticore deals damage equal to that creature's power to target creature or player. And it's also got Embalm for 5 and a red. Exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie Manticore with no mana cost. I know I said it's not that strong. In a couple decks, it's pretty strong. In Kaith, where you can fabricate or populate on a commander, is pretty good, especially paired with this Embalm, because you don't have to fling the creature. You can just start making cats with the populate. And then once you get enough cats, all the new ones that enter from the populate from Kaith will start sacrificing some of the old ones to fling 5 damage to keep opponents' boards cleared and do direct damage to everybody. Outside of Kaith, I have no fucking clue. So, let me know. For our green slot, however, it can go in plenty of decks. Selesnya Eulogist is 32 cents and ran in 8,811 decks. For 2 and a green, we get a 3/3 that you can pay 2 and a green, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate. This just seems like a strong tool for specific commanders. Should you run this in every deck as graveyard removal? Probably not. But in certain decks, should you run this as graveyard removal because of the populate added onto it? 100%. If you're in a Mirim deck, really strong dragon deck where you make dragon tokens, I think this is probably a good piece of graveyard hate to put in there, just because you start making even more dragons. Or something like Volo, where you're making tokens that are copies of big, scary creatures anyway. Now you get to start populating those big scary creatures. For our multicolor slot, we got Body Dropper, which is one that I expected to be in more decks by this point. I was going to give it a little time to breathe and then check back in. It's still under 10k, so, you know, now we're going to talk about it. For 4 cents, ran in 6,240 decks. Body Dropper is a black and a red for a 2/2. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Body Dropper. Pay a black and a red, sacrifice another creature, body dropper gains menace until end of turn. Keep in mind, this ability doesn't say whenever you sack a creature to body dropper, it's just when you sack a creature in general. So if you have a commander like Zayatora with a built-in sack outlet, this thing will just passively get bigger. Or if you run sack outlets like Altered Dementia, you can just make this thing get bigger on a whim if you're willing to sacrifice stuff to do so. Altered Dementia, however, has the added bonus of milling people for the power of the creature, so you could chain that with body dropper to, you know, get some pretty sizable mill in a deck. And then finally, we got an artifact that I'm sure is going to get some comments on this video because you guys are such big fans of Mind's Eye. Why wouldn't you be such big fans of Farsight Mask? I saw a bunch of people saying Mind's Eye was terrible online and then replying with Farsight Mask and being like, if you're willing to run Mind's Eye, just run Farsight Mask. And I said, you know what? I will. And then I looked it up and I was like, that's crazy, this is in this many decks. I think as a casual card, it's pretty good. Coming in at 24 cents, ran in 2,414 decks. Farsight Mask is 5 colorless for an artifact. Whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, if Farsight Mask is untapped, you may draw a card. And this is a source. It says it in the rules. So each individual creature that's dealing damage to you, that's a draw. Each burn spell, that's a draw. Each group hug ping for every basic game action we take is some sweet, sweet draw for us. A sweet, sweet nectar, which is actually really good. That ruling on each creature drawing us a card made me do the classic thing I always do with Magic cards where I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. Wait, hold on a second. That actually is really gross. If they're attacking you or targeting you in most any way, you're drawing a ton of cards. If they're not doing that, they're not doing that. So, you know, that is a bonus.
Strict Proctor. Strict Proctor is 1 and a white for a 1/3 flying. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. Yeah, pretty annoying. It's in 8,319 decks, which is, you know, right on the cusp of being 10k, so I love suggestions like this. Aaron says, it slows down games a bit, especially those blink decks like Amanatu. I have it in my Quintarius deck because it's also a spirit, so if I need to, I can sack it to its ability and bring back a potential curse onto the field. It's obviously a pretty good like pickup for like a budget stacks deck if you want to, if you're more of a control-y build. Maybe if your deck has absolutely no ETBs, you just throw it in to be like, cool card, thanks Aaron. I didn't put it on here, that's why I'm confused. Strict Proctor, 60 cents. Coming in next, we've got Firmament Sage and 526 decks coming in at 1 cent, and I kind of need to explain this one a little bit. Firmament Sage is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 human wizard. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Firmament Sage enters the battlefield. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, draw a card. So, if you're in like a hyper budget build, maybe you're doing like a challenge, maybe you're just in a hyper budget, you know what I mean? That's fine too. I think Firmament Sage is a pretty good card draw engine. For day to become night, you have to cast 2 spells on the same turn. For night to become day, you have to cast 0 spells. And it might be flipped. I might have flipped those two. Either way, whenever someone doesn't cast a spell on a turn, you get to draw a card. And then when it's the other way, if someone casts 2 spells, you get to draw a card. I feel like this thing will just draw you a pretty good amount of cards just by sitting in play. And this is for the budget viewers. These are for the people that are like, hey, I'm on a strict budget. It's a cent. It'll provide some pretty good card draw for you over the course of the game. I could almost see this in something like the Parnassi, or Parnace, I guess some of you guys said it was pronounced, group plug deck we did. Because you're kind of manipulating when day becomes night. You can be like, hey, would you mind not casting anything? Or, hey, would you mind casting 2 spells so that I can get a card draw, so that I can do this for you? You know what I mean? You can get kind of political with it. I think it's a cool card. I think for a cent, if you're on a budget, you can get a card draw piece. It's fine. Pandemonium, however, is better than fine. It's in 5,130 decks, and it comes in at $1.22. Pandemonium is 3 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever any creature comes into play, that creature's controller may choose to have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player. That has been retconned to say any target, so if you're running battles, this is kind of cool. If you're running Warstorm Surge, you might as well run this. If you're in Group Slug, like we talked about in my last video, how to speed up games of Commander, this is a great card on how to speed up the game. It pretty much just makes everything deal tons of damage. All the creatures deal tons of damage. If you're in a token deck, all your tokens are pinging. Goblin deck, there's a ton of different stuff. Obviously, all the decks that Warstorm Surge is good in, this is pretty good in. And if you're trying to accelerate games, I think this is a great pickup. Brandywine Farmer comes in next with 3,783 decks coming in at 3 cents. Brandywine Farmer is 2 and a green for a 1/1 halfling peasant. When Brandywine Farmer enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, create a food token. Again, this is for my budget boys, you know what I mean? This is a pretty good blink target. You're getting 2 foods every time you blink this thing. If you're in the right deck, those 2 foods could definitely be used. If you're in like a Rune of the Hidden Realm, a Chu Lane deck where you can blink this thing every turn, I think it's really good. I think something that people will miss out on a lot of the time when they're building commander decks is to throw in some stuff that uses your deck strategy in the early game. I think like a lot of my decks I found were missing some early game pieces that utilize my strategy, I threw them in. It works way better. So if you're in a blink deck, maybe check and see if you have some 2 and 3 drop blink targets, and if you don't, maybe throw in a Brandywine Farmer. I think it's pretty decent, especially if you've got like the life gain token sub theme going on. Homicide Investigator is one that I'm genuinely shocked I haven't talked about yet, and also it's in 2,269 decks, which is nuts. It comes in at 49 cents. It's 1 and a black for a 2/2 human detective. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability only triggers once each turn. So, Morbid Opportunist, a better card. This comes out cheaper. It also gives you tokens. It also puts an artifact on the board in the form of a clue, gives you a token in the form of a clue, and gives you card draw. So I think in certain decks, this one can be better than Morbid. Like if you're in Korvold, Fakehurst, or like Eloise, the Navalia Sleuth, those both seem fantastic for this card, because where Morbid Opportunist just draws you a card, this can also tap into your deck's usage of tokens as well as card draw, which is awesome. But all the decks you're running Morbid Opportunist outside of a token list, I think this card slots into those same decks. I've always got one of them. I've always got one card I like way more than all the other cards on these lists, and this is my favorite one of this list. Loamcrafter Fawn is insane, and I really suggest you pick one up immediately. It's in 4,580 decks, and it comes in at 10 cents. Loamcrafter Fawn is 2 and a green for a 3/3 Satyr Druid. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard 1 or more land cards. When you do, return up to that many target non-land permanents from your graveyard to your hand. This is going into Neb immediately, because imagine this. You Disciple a Bolus, crack a big thing to reanimate, you're drawing 8+ cards, gaining 8+ life. You drop a Loamcraft Shaman, and you go, yeah, I just drew all this, and it's got 5 lands in it. Ditch those. Get back all these other reanimation pieces. I can get back Animate Deads, Dance of the Deads with this, Sun Titans, Karmic Guides. It's disgusting. I think a lot of people are like, this goes in a Lands Matter deck. I genuinely think if you've got good card draw in your deck, or if you consistently have a pretty full hand, I think this card's good. Especially in Reanimator or like Blink, because early game doesn't matter. It's a 3/3, it's a Satyr. It's 3 for a 3/3. Awesome. You can still use it late game by reanimating and blinking it. So in those decks, it's extra good. But I still think just ditching lands out of your hand to get back more pieces you need late game, late game, very good card. I highly suggest picking one of these up. This next one might be the card where you're like, that's really good, and I've never seen it. Nature's Resurgence is in 770 decks and comes in at 24 cents. It's 2 and 2 green for a sorcery. Each player draws as many cards as there are creatures in his or her graveyard. I don't know, like if I have a Dauthi Voidwalker in play since like turn 2, or I run like a Bajuka Bog, or you know, any other countless number of things that can exile opponents' graveyards, and then play this, it's definitely an upgrade from Harmonize. You're going to be paying 4 mana to draw way more than 3 cards. Not a lot to say here. I think this is pretty good. Obviously in the right deck. If you're like, I don't run any creatures, then don't run the card. But if you run creatures, I like that card a lot. I am considering it for Teneb, possibly. Fraying Line is another one that is very hyper specific, but I thought I'd talk about it because it is a cool card, and you guys always come up with like alternate cool ways for me to use some of the stuff we talk about on these lists. Fraying Line is in 3,657 decks, and it comes in at 6 cents. It is 4 colorless for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may pay 2. If they do, they put a rope counter on target creature they control. Otherwise, exile Fraying Line and each creature without a rope counter on it. Then remove all rope counters from all creatures. Fraying Line, very good in Falco, gives me guaranteed counters, or I can use it as a board wipe card, which is really good. I also really like it in the Pulverizer deck. No, that doesn't sound right. Parry the Pulverizer! As that deck also cares about counters, and you can use this in kind of a multifaceted way again. Again, I don't really have a lot to say about it, because it's a weird card. I wanted to talk about it. I thought maybe some of you guys would be able to come up with some good uses of it. There's the card. So Nightclubber is our next one, and I really like it. It's in 3,255 decks, coming in at 5 cents. Nightclubber is 1 and 2 black for a 2/2 human warrior. When Nightclubber enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, and it has Blitz for 2 and a black. See ya, Viscera Seers. Bye-bye, birds. Have a good one, Esper Sentinels. Those are all gone. Not to even mention 1/1 tokens that are in play, which tons of stuff make. You can also blitz it to just draw a card if it's not that useful this game. You can get it back with Sun Titan, reuse it in your Reanimator decks. I think this is really, really good. I think this is a good tool piece to just have in a deck like that. It's like, hey, if there's a token deck at the table, if there's all these 1 toughness things, like utility creatures that are just providing all this value really early on, I can drop this 3-drop, take all those off the table, and then have a repeatable effect of that if it ever goes to grave. I really like this thing. I'm going to be picking it up for Teneb and trying it out, so expect that on the next Teneb update. Mortuary is one that also kind of shocked me that it's only in 3,022 decks. It comes in at $4.81, so it's the most expensive one on the list. Mortuary is 3 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, put that creature on top of your library. So I can see where this becomes like a card where you're almost scared of it, because you're like, I don't want the opponents to just kill my bad creature over and over, and then I'm just drawing the bad creature over and over and over again. Totally get it. I think this is really good as a combo piece, though, and it's really easy to set up. How it works is you have Mortuary in play. You play Gyruda, which will mill each player for 4, and then return a creature milled this way into play. This will return a clone if you hit it, and copy Gyruda, also causing the legend rule to go on the stack. We sacrifice the clone of Gyruda, causing Mortuary to trigger and put the clone back on top. Now our clone Gyruda's ability goes off, milling everyone for 4, and rinse and repeat. It's a little confusing, but that's how it works. You mill everybody out on the table with this, Gyruda, and a clone. Also, just a neat card. I'm not sure how good it is, honestly, just in a bubble by itself. That combo's really cool. I'm sure there's some decks where you could, like, figure out a way to get, like, a loop going with Mortuary. Again, a card I wanted to throw out there because you guys are deck fanatics like me, so this seems like a card that could spark some ideas. I got kind of a weird one. This might be the first vehicle on these lists. If it's not, it's definitely the first white vehicle on these lists. The Pridewind Steel flagship is in 5,453 decks, and it comes in at 49 cents. It's 4 and 2 white for a 6/6 legendary vehicle with flying. Whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white human knight creature token with this creature gets +2/+2 as long as an artifact entered under your control this turn. And it has crew 2. This is very good. If you're in the right deck, this is kind of nuts. Your Wayfarer's Baubles turn into 2/2s, your Soul Rings turn into 2/2s, all your Mana Rocks turn into 2/2s. Every artifact you're playing turns into 2/2s. And then those 2/2s are able to crew this giant ship. Even just making this amount of 2/2s in the right deck could be a win con. Also, those 2/2s just turn into 4/4s, because if you're in the deck that's able to use this ability to its fullest extent, you're probably going to have an artifact entering each turn. So this thing's essentially spitting out 4/4s. One of my favorite types of cards are cards that can be useful engines in the mid game and can make maybe not so useful parts of your deck useful late game. So what I mean is, like, Mana Rocks late game and mid game to some extent aren't nearly as useful as they are early game. But if you run a card like this, your late game Mana Rocks now become 2/2/4/4 knights. So being able to turn some of the bad aspects of late game into good aspects with, like, a single card like this, I think is something to try out for sure. Listen, I'm not like a toot my own horn kind of guy. This list is a banger. Every card I go to is just a banger. Mist Breath Elder is in 3,707 decks, comes in at 47 cents. It's 1 green for a 2/2. Frog Warrior. At the beginning of your upkeep, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on Mist Breath Elder. Otherwise, you may return Mist Breath Elder to its owner's hand. This dude's awesome. He's going immediately into Falco because, so what I've started doing with my decks, kind of like a side note here, I've started including cards that can, like, interact with other cards in my deck to produce very big value gains for me. So for instance, I've put Shrieking Drake into my Falco deck because I run Guardian Project in there, and just those two out together are insane. And Shrieking Drake being able to bounce back my Falco so I can replay it and get a shield counter, also not bad. This is the exact same thing. This is also going to be going into Falco for almost the identical reason. It's 1 for a 2/2 that can either reset Falco or can bounce itself and activate my Guardian Projects again. Not to even mention that this guy puts 1/1 counters on himself, which I didn't even think of because Falco Sparrow cares about 1/1 counters as well. This guy's definitely going in there. You guys are genius. This next one is solely because of you guys. That is why it's on this list. I didn't understand why this card was good. You guys explained it to me on a live stream. Insane. Reality Acid is in 9,314 decks. It comes in at 6 cents. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant permanent, vanishing 3. When Reality Acid leaves the battlefield, enchant permanent controller sacrifices it. So you read it and you go, okay, after the 3 vanishing counters are gone, it goes away, it kills the thing it's on. Really slow, expensive removal. I'm sorry, I don't notice things very quickly. Blink deck. Obviously, if this isn't a blink deck, it's just destroy permanents, because you just blink it, it leaves battlefield, kills the thing it's on, enters battlefield, reattaches to something else. Blink it, blink it, blink it. Knock my hat off. Lands, enchantments, battles, creatures, artifacts, planeswalkers. This one's just under the 10k deck mark. I probably would imagine it's even over it after this video because this is a very good card. Speaking of insanely good cards, I thought I'd save this one for the end. So, you know, I figured I'd save a card that we all could use pretty much for the end. Insane. Smoke Bomb from the Assassin's Creed set is ran in 7,557 decks, and it comes in at 42 cents. Smoke Bomb is 3 colorless for an artifact with flash. All creatures have Shroud. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Smoke Bomb. When you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Yeah, Teneb. I don't even have to really go into that too much. Protects Teneb, gives Teneb unblockable during my next turn. Definitely.
Radiant Solar is 5 and a white for a 3/6 with flying and lifelink. Whenever Radiant Solar or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, venture into the dungeon, pay 1 white, discard Radiant Solar, venture into the dungeon, and you gain 3 life. This is actually really good, and yes, I'm probably going to put it into Neb because it's a big flying lifelink beater that I can put in the graveyard just with its own ability, which is, you know, in a Reanimator deck. That's real good. But on top of that, every time I have a non-token enter, which in a Reanimator deck, I'm going to have tons of non-tokens enter, I get to venture into the dungeon. And with the dungeons having some pretty powerful effects towards the end, one of them being cheating creatures into play. Yeah, in a Reanimator deck, I feel like this has a ton of use. And while we're on the subject of Reanimator, enter the dungeon, Sephiroth, obviously, I feel like this is pretty good in that deck as well. For the price, for the amount of decks, give it a try. Coming in at the blue slot on the list is Excavation. Excavation is 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Pay 1, sacrifice a land, draw a card. Any player may play this ability. I think this is just cool. If you're in a group hug deck, this is great because you're giving everyone at the table the opportunity to draw while also making them sack lands, which could be great. If you're in like a lands matter deck, this could be a good way to get lands in your graveyard while also drawing cards. I really like this in like the group plug strategy we talked about with the Parnassi list on the channel, where it's pretty much a group hug deck, but everything you're giving them has a drawback. This seems like it's absolutely perfect in there. If you haven't understood by now on this channel, I love old enchantments. They're easily the coolest card type to me. And there's going to be more of them on this list. So for our black slot, we have a little bit of a weird card, I'm not going to lie, but it's pretty good. For the amount of decks and in a Spellslinger deck, I feel like it could do some serious work. Choice of Damnations is 5 and a black for a sorcery, arcane. Target opponent chooses a number. You may have that player lose that much life. If you don't, that player sacrifices all but that many permanents. It's pretty cool. So if your opponent has, let's say, 10 lands, 5 creatures, 2 enchantments, they have 17 things in play total. You go, hey, pick a number. If they pick 5, you can either have them lose 5 life or sack every permanent except for 5. So they might want to up that number a little bit. They'll probably be like, I want to keep 10 of my permanents at least, so I'll do 10. Okay, you lose 10 life for 6 mana, and then I can double it in a Spellslinger deck, potentially lose a lot more than that. I'm going to be putting this in my Tasigur Spellslinger list, which, again, that is coming up very shortly on the channel. They pick a number, you always get the best option. I just like this thing. 6 mana is a little steep, but in a Spellslinger deck, you run a bunch of big spells anyway. There's ways to cheat them out, get them out much cheaper. So in the Tasigur list or something like it, I think this is a great option. Maybe like Kess, where you can use this thing twice. Yeah, that seems pretty good. So for the red option, we've got Bulwark, which is really interesting. It comes in at 3 and 2 red, which may be a little steep, but the effect is pretty good if you're in the right deck. It's an enchantment. During your upkeep, Bulwark deals 1 damage to target opponent for each card in your hand greater than the number of cards in that player's hand. I actually really like this in a wheel deck because you're making everybody have very big hands. You're kind of controlling hand sizes. So if you can make sure that you're getting an extra big hand size compared to everybody else, maybe with the uncommon Planeswalker, I think it's Tameo that makes it so opponents can't draw more than 1 card. You wheel, you have 7 cards, everybody else has 1. Bulwark's dealing 6 damage to opponents. If you're in like a Rakdos discard deck, I also really like this because you can make sure you're keeping all the opponent's hands low, which will make this thing deal more damage. The ping effect kind of lends itself to be in like a group slug list. So if you have like a group slug discard deck, as weird as that sounds, this might be a great option. Definitely something to shout out. For our green slot, I think I've talked about this card before. I can't remember if it was a daily card highlight or in another list. I couldn't come across it or find it, so I'm possibly talking about it again. It's very good. Tranquil Grove is 1 and a green for an enchantment. You can pay 1 and 2 green to destroy all other enchantments. Yeah, it's an enchantment that just can be the only enchantment. You just wipe everything else but Tranquil Grove. Anytime someone plays a problem enchantment, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it with this. This seems very annoying in something like Muldrotha, where it just sits there, stops every enchantment from hitting play. If they even have a way to handle Tranquil Grove itself, you just play it again with Muldrotha. This honestly might be one of the best pieces of enchantment removal I've found, honestly. You might want to just take out most of your enchantment removal, put one of these in there. Okay, so for our artifact slot in this list, it's kind of a multicolor card as well, but I put it in as artifact because we have another cool multicolor card. and it's my video. So we got Blade Coil Serpent, which is X and 6 for an artifact creature serpent. That's a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, for each 2 blue spent to cast it, draw a card. For each 2 black spent to cast it, each opponent discards a card. And for each 2 red spent to cast it, it gets +1/+0, haste, and trample until end of turn. Yeah, so you can mix and match these. Plus it has X in its mana cost, so you can dump any extra into this as well. You can just pay 6 blue for this thing, and it's a 6 mana 5/4 draw 3 cards, which is pretty good. Or it's a 6 mana 5/4 when it enters, each opponent discards 3 cards. The first 2 are really good. If you're in a Grixis deck, I just think this is pretty decent. You either just get a big card advantage beater, or you get a thing that makes people discard cards. Again, if you're in like a weird wheel discard deck, I think this actually does some work in there as well. If someone doesn't have any blockers, you could use the red part of this just to bash face. And at the end of the day, it costs 6, and it also is in the color of blue and black. You have access to stuff like High Tide, you have access to stuff like Cryptghast, so it's not unthinkable to play this thing for 8, 10, 12 mana and have a ton of value when it hits play. I don't think this is a very high power card. I don't think it's low power either. I definitely think this is in like the mid, slightly above mid power tier. So if you're in that kind of range, I think this card's very, very good. The reason I think it's so underplayed is because it has to go into a deck that contains Grixis colors. So in Commander, your Commander has to have those colors. And dumping multiples of 1 color into a thing when you're in a 3-color plus deck is a little difficult. I do think there's ways that you could build the deck for this to be very powerful, as I said, with the High Tides and the Cryptghast. But I'm not sure. Let me know if you run this one. I actually am curious to see how this one is played. For some of you guys. But moving into the multicolor card of the list, we've got Purgatory. Purgatory is 2, a white and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, put that card face up under Purgatory. During your upkeep, you may pay 4 colorless and 2 life to put any card under Purgatory into play as though it were just played. If Purgatory leaves, remove all cards under it from the game. This is cool. There's a few cards that are printed that do something similar to this, but they almost always are like when there's no creatures in play, all the creatures you exiled come back in. This one's unique in that you just get an option on your upkeep to pay 4 and 2 life and just play one of those things. This is interesting though. I don't know how good this is in like a Reanimator style deck, like let's say Teneb, because when Purgatory leaves, it removes all the cards. And when something dies, you have to put that card under Purgatory. So it's a huge chance that someone just removes Purgatory and you lose all the access to those creatures. But if you're in a deck, I almost feel like this really, really excels in like a mid-range, late-game kind of battle cruiser deck that doesn't have that many reanimation sub-themes, but instead relies on like big mid-game to late-game creatures. This seems like a great way to just play this around all these big threats you have and be like, hey, you can either get rid of the Purgatory. Even if you do get rid of it and I lose all those creatures, I really don't run any reanimation anyway. I run Purgatory just so I can keep getting back all these big threats in my deck. This one's throwing me for a loop because it reads very much like it should be a Reanimator card. I don't think it is, as I said. I think it's better in a creature-based mid to late game deck.
So look, I'm not an elf player at all. I never have been, but I've also never seen Kithkin Mourncaller played in a single elf deck I've ever versed. I mean, probably because it doesn't come up on the searches because, well, it's not an elf, but it draws you a card every time an attacking elf dies. I mean, sure, it does Kithkins too, which people might have read and immediately been like, oh, this doesn't do what I want it to do, but it does elves as well. So definitely think about running this thing. Up next is Pestilent Spirit. This thing is 2 and a black to give all your instants and sorceries Death Touch. Play End the Festivities. Wipe your opponent's board for 1 mana. It itself is a 3/2 Death Touch and Menace, which is pretty good stats. I don't know, Earthquake for 1. This thing just seems like it could be busted. It's super sick. Put it in Rakdos. Yeah, literally, put it in Rakdos. That seems like something that would be Rakdos-y. Lumbering Satyr is number 3 on our list. Lumbering Satyr is super good, and I've never seen it before in my life. It's 2 and 2 green for a 5/3. Already pretty good stats. That gives all creatures Forest Walk. So hear me out before you start typing. Yes, this thing does give your opponent's creatures Forest Walk, but it's turn 2, turn 3, you drop a Yavimaya, turning everyone's lands into forest. No big deal. Everyone plays this card, it's really good. I mean, well, you probably see where I'm going with this. Flood your board with tokens, and then when you feel safe enough, drop this thing, and then everyone goes, oh fuck, he's got 1 billion tokens that are all unblockable because all our stuff's forest. It could even be used politically because now no one has the, well, I only attacked you because you didn't have the most blockers, or I didn't attack him because he has too many blockers. Nobody can use that excuse anymore. Everyone's unblockable, bitch. Lumbering Satyr turns the battlefield into a fucking war zone. Number 4 here is Silverglade Pathfinder. This thing is sick. She's 1 and a green for a 1/1. You can pay 1 and a green, tap her, discard a card out of your hand, search your library for a basic land, and put it into play tapped. She's just a rampant growth on a stick, and she's a discard engine. Put her in Muldrotha to fill your graveyard while ramping to play those cards you just put in the graveyard back. Any lands matter deck that runs Crucible of Worlds needs this thing. And like all these cards, it's super inexpensive. I fucking love it. Lastly, we have Dire Fleet Daredevil. I found this thing last week on my stream. It's 1 in a red for a 2/1 first strike. When Dire Fleet Daredevil enters the battlefield, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You may cast it this turn and use mana of Zoe or any color to cast it. When that spell is put into the graveyard this turn, exile it. I love this thing. You just add 1 in a red onto any mana cost of any instant or sorcery in the graveyard, and you can just yoink it and play it. Need a board wipe? Make sure you have 6 mana, play this thing, yoink a Wrath of God out of their graveyard, play Wrath of God, wipe the board. Need some card draw? In mono red, literally just play 3 mana, play this thing, yoink a Brainstorm, play the Brainstorm, you just brainstormed in mono red. That seems pretty good for 3 mana and having a 2/1 first strike on the board. This thing just seems sick.
Elder Arthur Maxon. Elder Arthur Maxon. Elder Arthur Maxon. Elder Arthur Maxon. We'll just nickname him EAM. He comes in at 12 cents and he's ran in 5,478 decks. EAM is 1, a black and a white for a 4/2 legendary creature human knight. Creature tokens you control have training. When a creature with training attacks, as long as it's attacking with another creature with higher power, put a 1/1 counter on the creature with training. You can sacrifice another creature to give EAM indestructible until end of turn. This guy makes a fucking cool commander. Honestly, I don't know why he's not played that much. He's actually really neat because he is a token commander that supplies a buff to your tokens in the form of +1/+1 counters and also has built-in protection. That's a ton of utility to have on a 3-drop commander in a token list. You're pretty much having everything the deck needs to do on your commander, which I'm told is pretty good. I love this card and gave Guru a Spores. Spoiler, I'm gonna bring him up a few more times because a ton of stuff's good in that deck. Your tokens have training, your tokens get 1/1s, you remove the token, you remove the 1/1s with Gave to get more tokens. Pretty decent. Keep in mind, all of our tokens have training, and training only requires 1 creature swinging along with a creature with training that has higher attack than the creature with training. So if you have 10 1/1s with training, which is probably gonna happen a lot in this deck, as long as you have 1 creature attacking that has higher attack than 1, all of those tokens get a 1/1 counter, which makes this commander built-in win condition as well. Feign the Broker, Retribution of the Ancients, these are both awesome. They act as mana ramp and removal respectively, like super good in a list like this, or just alongside a card like this. Keep in mind that if your trigger for training when you swing has already entered the stack, you can sack the big creature that caused the training to trigger. So if you want to, like, for instance, give Elder Arthur Maxon indestructible until end of turn, yeah, you can still sack the big creature that caused the training to trigger if it already triggered. Just a little note. Coming in next is Daring Archaeologist. Daring Archaeologist is 3 and a white for a 3/3 human artificer. When Daring Archaeologist enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast a historic spell, put a 1/1 counter on Daring Archaeologist. So I think this would be really good in my cousin's Breya Ethereum Sculptor deck, because that is a artifact-based blink deck that could definitely use some of the blink spells to be blinking Daring Archaeologist to get back artifacts to throw them back into the loop. I also really like it in something like Amanatu the Fate Shifter because her -1 can blink a permanent, so you could blink Daring Archaeologist to get back artifacts. Of course, your Amanatu list would have to be leaning more towards the artifact side of things, but any kind of artifact-based deck that also has like blink sub-themes and access to white, I think this card's great. Coming in next is Horned Stone Seeker, which ironically enough was my nickname back in high school. For 2 cents, ran in 721 decks. Horned Stoneseeker is 1 and a red for a 2/2 lizard with menace. When he enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone token, and when he leaves the battlefield, sacrifice a Power Stone. I actually like this little dude a lot for 2 cents, but like I like him in decks that check 2 boxes. 1, the commander has an activated ability that the Power Stone can help pay for, and 2, the commander cares about artifacts being in play because you're making a Power Stone. Again, I don't hate this in like a budget Breya list because you could still run the blink sub-themes. This has an ETB, so it would interact there. It's also an artifact that can help use Breya's ability, and also an artifact that you can sack to Breya's ability. I think it's pretty good. I also really like him in Osgir because the Power Stone he makes can be used to activate both of Osgir's abilities, and he can also sack the Power Stone to activate one of Osgir's abilities. So also for like tribal players, there's something to be said about him being a lizard. There's like a ton of new lizard support in Bloomburrow, so if that's something you're into, that you want to lean towards like lizard artifacts or like lizard Voltron with a ton of equipments, maybe something you'd consider. So next we've got Bioblight, which is one of my old school classic, like, favorite cards. I didn't expect it to be in under 10k decks, genuinely, when I looked it up. It comes in at 7 cents, and it's ran in 5,836 decks. For 2 black at instant speed, target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature get -3/-3 until end of turn. Yeah, I don't really have specific commander recommendations or like synergy recommendations. Well, I mean, like, it kills tokens. It'll wipe a board of tokens as long as their toughness is 3 or less, because tokens all have the same name, obviously. This also gets around indestructible, which is great. Kind of how I said on the last list with the bouncer card that gives you the board wide -1/-1 to opponents. It's pretty good to just wipe out annoying small stuff that people are playing. Esper Sentinel, sorry, I'm gonna take you out. Professional Facebreaker, I gotta do it. Sorry, you're really good right now. It also gets around indestructible. So, like, I think having this in your back pocket, maybe replace one of your removal spells with Bioblight, it might be useful. Juxtapose is a weird one. I'm gonna get that right out of the way. Coming in at 19 cents, ran in 451 decks. For 3 and a blue, we get a sorcery speed. You and target player exchange control of the creature you own with the highest converted mana cost, then exchange control of artifacts the same way. Sure, so if you didn't check out my Lotus Precon for the Satoru deck, I'll put a link up here. You can go check it out. It's an under $50 deck. It's about Satoru. It's about possibly swapping stuff in play with other people. And I thought Juxtapose was just a card I missed for that list. It's also an interesting card that I've never seen before, so I thought I'd share it. I would recommend checking out that video because I'm doing a giveaway for a Planeswalker Party Precon. Check it out. Enter the giveaway. Anyway, Kyrion Druid is disgusting, and I thought I would tap into all the community members. We've got some budget members, we got some more fun members, some more combo members, and then we've got pieces of shit. So this is for us. For 2 and a green, we get a 1/2 Druid that we can pay 1 green and tap to turn target land into a 2/2 permanently. It's a 2/2 creature for the rest of the game. Actually, cool. I can make more bodies on my side. Cool, I can turn a land an opponent controls into a 2/2 and kill spell it. You can do way grosser stuff with that. Put this in a Hansk Slayer Zealot deck. Yeah, sorry, I can actually tap to deal 2 damage to target creature. Oh, is that land actually a creature now? Oh man, that sucks. Not to even mention, you can turn your own lands into creatures to get more bodies, and if you're in a Lands Matter deck, if those bodies die, you can just replay them from the graveyard, and it's like all the better. So you Lord Windgrace players, go feast upon this. It's a really annoying card. It's also on the reserved list, which explains the like $2, which isn't even that much anyway, but someone on the last video recommended that I bring up if it's on the reserve list or not, which is actually a really good shout out, so this one is. So is the next one, which is why it comes in at such a steep price, but it's also ridiculously underplayed. Corpse Dance comes in at $17.28. I know, it's on the reserve list. It's ran in 5,303 decks. It's 2 and a black for an instant with buyback 2, so if you pay an additional 2 when you cast it, it goes back to your hand as a part of the spell's effect. Put the top creature card from your graveyard into play. That creature is unaffected by summoning sickness this turn. Remove it from the game at the end of turn. Yeah, your last thing that died, that's gonna go ahead and come into play with haste. Oh, and a cool little rules fact, if you can manage to sack the creature you brought back, you don't have to exile it at the end of turn. So like the Ashnod's Altars, the Altars of Dementia, Corpse Dance, plus my Lord of Extinction Altar Dementia win con that I got going in the Teneb. Disgusting. I have nothing else to say, Your Honor. Gross. So is Sentinel Hierophants, actually. This is kind of a disgusting card. It recently got reprinted in the Bloomborough Commander, so I expect the amount of decks that it's ran in to go up a little bit, but it was printed a while back. Actually, let me see what last set was. It was last printed in Urza's Saga, but the reprint gave it a pretty little new price tag. It comes in at 13 cents. It's ran in 7,149 decks. It's 3 and a green for a 3/2. That's a human druid, even though everything about it reads like an elf. Creatures you control have tap, add 1 green. Obviously, if you're in a go wide deck, you're like, hey, all my tokens can now add more mana. I've got to bring up Gave again, because your tokens you make can now tap for a green. If you have Concordant Crossroads, there you go, Gave players. You got a cool little thing going there. I actually really like this on Amara, Soul of the Accord, as well, because she just has to tap. It doesn't have to be combat for you to make a token, so she gets the ability to tap for a green, and when she does, you make a token that can also tap for a green. That's really good. So, Hidetsugu's second. Right? I'm gonna be honest. Not a great card. Is it a funny card? Very funny. Did I think you would appreciate it if you're watching my videos? Very much so. For 3 and a red, we get an instant that if a player is at exactly 10 life, it will deal 10 damage to that player. I thought this was kind of a funny win con. I thought you guys would appreciate it. I'd never seen it before. There it is. Next one. Up next is Auriok Blade Warden, coming in at 10 cents, ran in 407 decks. It's 1 and a white for a 1/1 that you can tap. Target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Auriok Blade Warden's power. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not well versed in equipment decks. I'm not that well versed in like white-based equipment decks. So I'm not 100% sure where this one would go. I almost don't mind this in just like a token deck, because token decks have a lot of ways to like buff boards. For instance, if you got like a Feldar's Retreat rolling, this is really good because if someone blocks it, you just put all its power into something else. It's also getting bigger with it. I wasn't really sure what the recommendations on this one. This one, you guys can maybe come in and help out. I just thought this was a pretty strong card to get damage through in a go wide deck. If you can buff this guy up. All right, I saved my favorite one on this list for last. I normally throw it in there pretty early. Nah, not this time. Stone Idol Generator comes in at 17 cents. It's ran in 4,821 decks. It is 5 colorless for an artifact. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you get an energy. You can tap it, pay 6 energy to create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact. Activate only as a sorcery. This is incredibly easy in a go wide deck, like a token deck, creature deck, tribal deck, to just drop, swing with 6 creatures, tap, get a 6/12. You paid 5 mana to get a 6/12, and that's not even it. If you can keep that aggression up, you just keep making 6/12s. You know what I mean? And the energy stays. It doesn't just go away. So it's like you can slowly whittle in damage and start making 6/12s every couple of turns, every few turns. If you have enough creatures, you can make 6/12s every turn. They also have trample. This thing's a win condition, honestly. Vigil of the Lost. This white enchantment costs 3 and a white. Whenever a creature you control dies, you may pay X. If you do, you gain X life. Wait, hold on. Wait, you guys hear that? Somebody let that mana sink in. I feel that life gain cards get like a blanket no from people. You know, they see it and they go, no. When some of them, I feel, should be considered. In a token deck, every creature that dies on our side is a potential huge life gain, which may just stop them from acting on a board wipe, killing something that's buffing our tokens, even something as small as killing a token, they might not just do it. Not to mention, where most of these death triggers will thrive, an aristocrat deck. Aristocrat decks tend to have black, and then a lot of the times they have white as well, so if you can pair this with like a Sanguine Bond or a Blood Artist, it would become a real threat. Not to mention, you don't even need to sink all your mana into this thing, you can just do it in like little bursts. The best move is definitely just waiting for your opponent to pass into you, sack a creature, sink all your mana into that creature before it becomes your turn. Honestly, a commander that I've been trying to build for a while is Lycia Sanguine Tribute, which this might be a good spot for, especially if you're leaning more of an aristocrat way with her, because you could like crack a creature, dump 5 mana into Vigil, gain 5 life. Lycia cost 5 less, player for 3, spam her ability because you're gaining life over and over with this thing, plus all the sacking. I don't know. The thing is, it's so severely underplayed that there's like no info or stats about it online, so shout out anything else that comes to mind for this card. Spiteful Prankster and Hissing Iguanar. Yeah, a Hissing Iguanar. Nara, Hissing Iguanar. Both come in as spiky little guys that just show you that Rakdos Aristocrats is the superior aristocrats. Spiteful Prankster, or SP if you're close with him, and Hissing Iguanar are 2 and a red for a creature that, whenever another creature dies, they deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. Blood Artist without the gain, with more power, and it deals damage, so you could just throw lifelink on it anyway. To put it short, yeah, the long reason. The global aspect of these are just really good. Anything dies, pings for 1, pretty good. It also doesn't say non-token, so anything dies, ping for 1. Also, look at this April Fool's version of Prankster. Like, what the devil doing? These just seem great, and maybe they just got lost in the mountains of cards, and I'm here with my little magic pickaxe as a little magic archaeologist to resurface them for you, so here you go. Yeah, blue isn't a color I expected to see on this list, but here we are. Murder of Crows is a card I've seen so many goddamn times. I've never read it once because I went 5-drop. No, I know you might still be saying 5-drop. No, let's give it a read. Let's hear it out. Let's hear the Murder of Crows out. For 3 and 2 blue, we get a 4/4 flying. Not a bad rate. Whenever another creature dies, we may draw a card. If we do, discard a card. Oh, damn. That's not bad at all. You 5-drop costing flock of feathers, dude. I mean, again, it's global, and it's non-token, so literally anything dies, we get a loot. This seems really good in Reanimator, as those decks can just sack stuff to get this to trigger, which will then put more stuff in the grave and filter out you know, potentially Reanimator cards into our hand. This genuinely seems good in something like Muldrotha. Really good in Rafine as well. That just popped into my head. Geez, really good in Rafine with all the conniving going on. Definitely underplayed because it costs 5, but I think the ability is really unique and actually good. If it helps you, just think of it as like 2.5 Storm Crows stapled together. I know you guys like meme shit, so maybe that'll help you run it. Karu, Bloodsucker, I should call her. This thing is honestly a very unique card that I thought all my students should be made aware. For 2 and a black, we get a 2/2. Whenever a creature we control with power 4 or greater dies, each opponent loses 2 and we gain 2. It's also a sack outlet. You can pay 2 and a black, sack a creature, give it a 1/1 counter. I hate to sound like the coolest guy you ever went to school with, but this thing's sick. I feel like this would be good in like a Jund deck where you're trying to play threats and then buff those threats, all the while sacking them to this guy. You know, if they get targeted, if someone's like, hey, deal with that big thing, you're like, I'll just sack it to this and ping everybody for 2, gain 2, make this thing bigger. Sure. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is really good in the new Wise Mothman deck for the same reason. Mothman's just buffing all of our creatures, and then if they're dealt with, we can just sack them to Kiru to drain. Yeah, Mothman will guarantee they're 4 or bigger. I mean, yeah, it's pretty neat. Plus, the art. Death's Oasis is easily the most unique death trigger card on this list. Hands down. For a white, a black, and a green. Warning, warning, potential Teneb card. Teneb senses tingling. Yeah, I get it. We all get it. The Teneb joke's so funny. We get an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a creature card with lesser mana value than the one that died from your graveyard to your hand. We can also sack the enchantment itself to gain life for the greatest mana value among creatures we control. This is awesome, Teneb. It's like a bone for Teneb. It's like, here you go, boy, you deserve it. This guy turns all our creatures into a scrap taller for other creatures. That's just good. I'm sold. This card is just some good old school commander. It's great in slower based lists. Like if you're a battle cruisery player like me, you're gonna love this thing. It's probably underran just because of the fact it's 3 color, but if you can run it, I feel like it's pretty good. Maybe consider it. Brazen Cannonade is the definition of a glass cannon card. For 3 and a red, we get an enchantment. Whenever an attacking creature we control dies, Brazen Cannonade deals 2 damage to each opponent. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, if you attacked with a creature this turn, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of combat on your next turn, you may play that card. I mean, it does the thing. It keeps the aggro deck's foot on their neck by threatening damage still. It's still rewarding a path, while also rewarding an aggressive play style with impulse draw, which is awesome. Like, am I missing something? I get that it could be a dead card if you don't have creatures, but if you're in the aggro deck and you don't have creatures, you're already losing, and you're the aggro deck, you know what I mean? You're a glass cannon. You're either do or die, baby. This seems like it would be really good in the Alesha Legends Rat deck we just built, as Alesha pretty much guarantees we'll have attackers, and even if they're dealt with, she can just recur them, so that's perfect. Speaking of which, there's a link in the top right corner. Maybe click it after this one. Aki Emberkeeper is an interesting one. I've actually liked this thing ever since Kamigawa came out. When I was at the pre-release, I was like, this is a pretty cool card. I haven't gotten to utilize it correctly yet, but I wanted to share it because you guys help me find cards to correctly utilize stuff sometimes, so here we go. For 1 and a red, we get a 2/1. Whenever a non-token modified creature you control dies, create a 1/1 colorless spirit token. I really like this thing in something like Marchesa, you know what I mean? Because we're playing threats, Marchesa gives 1/1 counters, so if they die, they come back with Marchesa's ability. They also produce a token, which can then also have dethrone and start swinging. I don't know, it seems really nice. It's also a goblin, so, you know, put it in your goblin decks or something, dude. I don't know. He's a cool little guy. I like him. Deathbringer Thokdar has my vote for the most surprising under 10k decks on the list, maybe even on the channel, because it's very good. For 4 red and a black, we get a 3/3. Whenever another creature dies, he gets a 1/1 counter. You can remove a 1/1 counter from Thokdar to deal 1 damage to any target. This one makes no goddamn sense at all. Officer Deathbringer is a damn good cop, and the fact you're not letting him into the fold frankly makes me sick. Not only does it become a machine gun on standby, as you can just like let counters sit on it, it can also just like kill creatures and then get 1/1 counters from the stuff it's killing. It could also target battles and planeswalkers, which is cool. If there's a token deck making a bunch of 1/1s, those 1/1s don't exist because you remove a counter to ping one, and then that one dying gives you a counter, and you rinse and repeat. This is honestly like the most egregious display of fell through the cracks I've ever seen. Run this card now, pick it up, very good. And finally, a bit of a curveball for you. We've got Warhost Frenzy. I've never seen this card. It's very good. For 2 and a red, you get an instant speed with Kicker for 1 black. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. You're like, okay, Nick, cool. A War Cry. Why do I care? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because if it was kicked, whenever a creature you control dies this turn, you draw a card. Swing Face, instant speed buff. If it's kicked, draw off combat, or you can just sack if you're an aristocrat. That still counts. Or you board wipe. play this in response. You can do a lot of different stuff with this, or you just don't kick it and you bash face and win with it. This thing rocks, again, in a glass cannon strat, go big or go home. Also, it doesn't say non-token, so in a token deck, this is really good. Forbidding Spirit, who is 1/2 white for a 3/3. When Forbidding Spirit enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 2 for each of those creatures. Aaron goes on to say, when it ETBs, it creates a ghostly prison effect until your next turn, so even when it dies, you'll still have it static. It's absolutely hilarious in a flicker deck because you can just stack the effects, so in theory, if you continuously flicker him, an opponent could have to pay 10 per creature to attack you. So, like you said, if you're in a blink deck, like let's say Rune of the Hidden Realm, this is definitely a good target because you'll consistently have a ghostly prison effect on your side of the board. You're more than likely going to have a ghostly prison or a propaganda type effect in play already, making it pretty much impossible for anyone to feel good and actually go through with swinging at you. I could see this being underplayed due to Stonehorn Dignitary, because you can just blink Stonehorn over and over and literally skip over combat completely, but Stonehorn has an extremely high CMC, which makes it a lot more difficult to work with. All in all though, if you're in a blink style deck that also leans kind of into Pillow Fort sub-themes, I think Forbidding Spirit is a fantastic pickup. Shouts out to Aaron for suggesting it. And let's move on to Hurkyl's Recall, which absolutely astonishes me as under 10k decks. 1 in a blue for an instant, return all artifacts target player owns to his or her hand. And I don't want to hear just because it's mean, you know what I mean? You know how many mean cards people run in Commander? You know how many treasure tokens are in play nowadays? Clue tokens, food tokens, blood tokens, artifact-themed decks, Thopters, Mirrors, commanders themselves that are artifacts. Use it on your own artifacts if someone's wiping the board, so you can like protect them and bounce them back to your hand. I think this card is incredibly fluid and versatile, and under 10k decks is ridiculous for it. I am definitely going to pick one of these up because I think at almost any point in the game that I can think of that I've played in the last week, I would love to have dropped a Hurkyl's Recall. Especially if your deck runs like looter effects where you can pitch a card to draw a card. Maybe the games you're not versing other artifact decks, you could ditch the Hurkyl's Recall with one of those looter effects. All in all though, like I think Hurkyl's Recall is a fantastic toolbox piece, so if you're leaning more towards a toolbox deck or maybe just a toolbox style of play as a player, I think Hurkyl's Recall is a good piece to put in there. I know it sees some play in some other formats. I think Commander should also be one of those formats. Moving on to Mutilith Vortex Beast, who is 4, a blue and a red for a 6/6 trample. When it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each opponent you have. For each flip you win, draw a card. For each flip you lose, deal 3 damage to that player. So in a bubble, this reads pretty, yeah, it's okay. If you're in like a mid power level play group, you got a 6/6 for 6 trample, might do damage, might draw you cards. Yeah, that seems pretty decent. I think this is actually really good in like a Jeskai Blink deck where you've got like Cloud Shifts, Ephemerates, Planner Incisions, so that you can keep blinking this guy and getting just constant draw cards or pings on opponents. I think this is an extremely powerful blink target, actually. Displacer Kitten. Boom. Every time you play a non-creature, yeah, sorry, we're gonna flip some coins. Not to even mention if you are in the coin flipping deck where you have access to stuff like Krark's Thumb, where you can just rig every coin flip. I think this gets pretty good. A weird coin flip blink deck. Yeah, I think some of you weird guys out there would like that. But there was so much cool stuff in Warhammer that it doesn't shock me that there's still stuff that's under 10k decks that's pretty strong. Moving on to another pretty straightforward card that shocks me that it's under 10k decks. Shenanigans is 1 in a red for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact. Dredge 1. So it's essentially just a shatter at sorcery speed, but with Dredge, you can replace your draw with returning Shenanigans to your hand and milling a card. So if you're in a deck that cares about filling your grave, like my Karum deck, while also needing some removal, Shenanigans is repeatable artifact removal. Again, if you're against an artifact deck at the table, Shenanigans, let it go to grave, draw a card, Dredge instead, return Shenanigans, Shenanigans again. Pretty potent artifact removal while also being able to fill the grave. Like, honestly, just that's about all there is to say about it. It's really solid. Moving on to the realm of more annoying than solid. Not that it's not solid, but oh, it's incredibly annoying. Tangle is 1 in a green for an instant. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn, and attacking creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and not only play Fog, but I'm gonna have a Sleep stapled onto it for 2 mana. Is that what we're doing now? Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Stick this under an Isochron Scepter. Good night. Incredible card. Get this over 10k immediately. Another one that I really like is Foot Bottom Feast, being 2 and a black for an instant. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library, which is a pretty good going rate. 3 mana, instant speed. Just stack all your best stuff on top of your library that's in grave, and it also lets you draw a card. So you could just grab one thing and then get it to your hand, grab a few things, get one of them into your hand immediately. It's an instant, so you're dropping this probably at the end of someone's turn, so you're probably going to get 2 of those things you got into your hand. So there's some little value you can get with this, but it's really the any number that's pretty crazy. You can pair this with Sir Conrad to ping opponents for a ton late game. If you're in a play group where games go really long, you can do this to pretty much just reset the top of your deck if you were to use something like Elixir of Immortality, whereas Foot Bottom Feast just puts it on top and you know what you're drawing. Interacts pretty good with stuff like the infamous Cruel Claw because you're setting the top of your deck. Also stuff like Hidden Zugu. I could see this working pretty well with that. Solid card. The instant is really carrying here, but it's an instant and it's really good at instant speed. Glyph Elemental is one that I came across while I was deck brewing the other night. Couldn't sleep, ended up staying up till like 4 in the morning brewing a deck. It's the little snippet I showed you at the beginning of this video. The deck didn't work. I did find some cool cards. Glyph Elemental being one of them. 1 and a white for a 2/2, Bestow for 1 and a white. Landfall, when a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Glyph Elemental. Enchant creature gets 1/1 for each 1/1 counter on Glyph Elemental. So you can either play this as a turn 2 bear that will just scale throughout the entire game, or just wait to play a creature, bestow it onto that creature, and then that creature scales, and if someone handles that creature and removes it, this will just fall off and become a creature again. I think every stat on it is pushed to be as good as it possibly can be. 2 mana 2/2, bestow for 2, landfall giving a counter instead of just a 1/1. Pair that with like the Ozolith, so even if they deal with the creature and then this falls off and they deal with this, the counters still go to the Ozolith. I think there's a lot of ways to make this card really durable in a counter-based deck and be a source of like a lot of the counter output in that deck. Let's move on to Overabundance. Overabundance is 1, a red and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 additional mana to his or her mana pool of the same type, and Overabundance deals 1 damage to them. Yeah, so it's a mana doubler for everyone. So everybody gets mana doubled for 3 mana. Would I personally run this? No, I'm scared I would get absolutely wiped by another deck at the table. But if you're in like a goad deck where you're not going to be swung at a lot or attacked a lot, or like a Pillow Fort deck, I say goad because it's green-red, so more than likely goad, where you're running stuff like Disrupt Decorum, where nothing's going to be coming at you. I actually like this card. You're running stuff like Bedlam so no one can block, and then Overabundance so everybody can flood the board. Yeah, I actually like that. All the while, Overabundance is just pinging people for tapping mana. I love it. Drop a Descent into Avernus alongside that. You've got a crazy like group slug goad deck going on. I actually really like this in a build like that. While everyone else is running it in like big mana good stuff decks like Zakama or Yurlok, I really do think it would thrive in like a goad list where you're not going to be targeted and you can let everyone else just flood the board with creatures with all the big mana that they have now. Moving on to River Churn Monument. This is insane. This card's actually very good. I think it could be a win con in a lot of people's decks. I'm probably going to try it out in Taval to see how it plays as a win con in there. For 1 and a blue, as an artifact, we can pay 1 and tap it. Any number of target players each mill 2 cards, which is great because we have a ton of reanimating cards like Reanimate, Animate Dead. So if we're hitting any creatures with that on opponents or with us, we can reanimate them. But it also has Exhaust, pay 2 and 2 blue, tap it. Any number of target players each mill cards equal to the number of cards in their graveyard, and you can only use an exhaust ability once a turn. So this is actually pretty nuts. I don't know about you, but in Commander, everyone's grave gets 20, 30 cards incredibly quickly. So being able to just pay 4 mana and be like, oh, everyone put another 30, and then the turn after that be like, hey, I'm taking every one of you guys out with mill if you can't handle River Churn Monument because it's been out for 3 turns. Extremely strong form of mill. Like I said, straight up win con on this thing. Art is gorgeous. Win con, 2-drop, fills graveyards. Honestly, there's not much that I don't like about this card. Thermopod is coming up next for 4 and a red, being a 4/3. You can pay a snow-covered land to give it haste until end of turn, but that's not what we care about. You can also sacrifice a creature to add 1 red to your mana pool. So if you're in like a mono red deck, maybe red paired with another color deck that's like a token list, this is pretty good. I mean, we all know how good Ashnod's Altar is. We all know how good Phyrexian Altar is. If you're in a deck that can just utilize the red mana specifically, this will feel very similar to both of those. Your Krenko Mob Boss deck, yeah, you can turn all your goblins into red mana now. That's pretty good. What about your Atla Palani deck, where you're just making a bunch of eggs waiting to crack them? Why don't you crack them into red mana? And then get big creatures as well. That seems really good. I think we talked about Thermopod back when I was doing daily card highlights, but I feel like it's been long enough, and I also wasn't 100% sure, so here it is. Remember how we were saying Warhammer had so much cool stuff that it was impossible to get it all over 10k? Yeah, Convergence of Dominion is another example of that. 3 for an artifact, as long as you control your commander, activated abilities of cards in your graveyard cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that ability's activation cost to less than 1 mana. Pay 3, tap it, mill 3 cards. Yeah, so if you have your commander, those flashback cards, those cost 2 less to flashback now. Those embalm cards, those cost 2 less to embalm. The escape cards, 2 less to escape. So if you're in any kind of deck that is the main theme, this is incredibly useful. And on top of all that, it says, hey, let me go ahead and mill 3 cards for you. So you can just essentially, if you're in one of those decks, be drawing 3 cards, because you can now cast those from your graveyard for 2 less. They have flashback, or they have escape, or they have whatever your deck's based around. And you've got an incredibly potent just utility artifact that's in play. You got an Arami of the Dead Tide deck, giving your stuff in your graveyard Encore for its mana cost. Yeah, those Encores all cost 2 less. And we could go on all day with graveyard abilities. Like, you got Scavenge, you've got Unearth. With the new Tarkir set, we've got Harmonize. There's tons of good stuff that Convergence of Dominion can synergize with. So bust it out. If you've got a deck, put this in it. Up next, I want to take a look at Convert to Slime, because I think this is actually a really solid piece of removal. I probably overlooked it because it was a sorcery, but upon rereading it, I think this is fine. 3, a black and a green for sorcery speed, destroy up to 1 target artifact, 1 target creature, and 1 target enchantment. That's right, it says and, it doesn't say or, so you're blowing up 3 things for 5 mana. That's a pretty good going rate, and 3 very diverse things. Then if there are 4 or more card types in your graveyard, create an XX green ooze creature token, where X is the total mana value of permanents destroyed this way. This could easily be 10 plus a lot of the time it's being played, and you're spending 5 mana to remove 3 things and get 10 plus power on board. Not to even mention if you're in a token deck that's running some of the token doublers, like let's say Doubling Season, then you're getting 2 of those XX oozes. Or if you're in a deck that cares about big beefy creatures coming into play, like Zayatora, so you can fling it at the opponent's face and make 3 treasures, this is a great piece of removal to put in a deck like that. The odds of this not hitting at least 2 things that you want and giving you a token that is a good enough size that you feel pretty damn good having it on your side of the board is about as high of a chance as you have not hearing back from me when you message me. It's pretty high. All in all, I really like this card, so I think we should give it a shot. So moving on to Kanda's Banner, this is my favorite card of the list. I think the art is absolutely like incredible. Might take the spot for my favorite Magic art. Honor the Pure has had that spot for the longest time. This might have done it. And then, after being completely hypnotized by the art for a good 10-15 minutes, I looked down and read the card. It's a really good card. For 2 mana, we get an equipment that equips for 2. Love me a cheap equip cost. It can only be attached to a legendary creature. Creatures that share a color with the equipped creature get +1/+1. Creatures that share a creature type with the equipped creature get +1/+1. Yeah, put this in Krenko. It's just, hey, what's up? My Krenko's giving all my goblins +2/+2 because they're goblins and they're red. Honestly, any tribal deck. Alayla? Yeah, put this in Alayla. You're making a fairy for playing it. You equipped it to Alayla. All your fairies are now getting +2/+2. Again, for essentially 2 mana. I know you're paying 4 to get the attachment. Honestly, even at 4 mana, giving a +2/+2 is really good. Pick one up, dude. This is awesome. Speaking of awesome, let's talk about Savor the Moment. For 1 and 2 blue, we have a sorcery speed. Take an extra turn after this one. Skip the untap step of that turn. If we're just trying to get like upkeep triggers, end step triggers, any kind of triggers again, this is fantastic because that'll give you all of those for 3 mana. It really doesn't matter if you untap. So if you're just trying to milk triggered abilities, 3 mana to pretty much get all your triggered abilities that are like at the beginning of your end step, at the beginning of your upkeep, at the beginning of your main phase. That's a really good going rate. On top of all of this though, we haven't even brought up Planeswalkers. Planeswalkers don't care about untapping, so they're just gonna get a whole nother use for 3 mana. So if you're in a Super Friends deck, Savor the Moment is incredibly good because you're just getting a whole nother rotation of Planeswalker usage for 3 mana. This is very much a me style card. I like this a lot. My brain's already thinking, how would this work in Taval? What would this be good interaction with? I just really, really do like this card a lot. I think it could be utilized far more than 8,000 decks. Are you kidding me? So let's get on it, boys. Chap chap. Get this in some of your list. Let's move on to Contractual Safeguard. Contractual Safeguard is another one that I think was a part of my daily card highlights. I'm not 100% sure. Also, again, I think it's been long enough and it's good enough. Let's talk about it again. For 2 and a white at instant speed, if you cast a spell during your main phase, put a shield counter on a creature you control. Choose a kind of counter on a creature you control. Put a kind of that counter on each other creature you control. So 2 and a white to put a shield counter on all your creatures is actually nuts. You know how annoying that is? We all know how annoying Ward is. Like, Ward 1 by itself is enough to pretty much protect a creature. It's like, I don't want to pay the 1 extra mana. Do you want to pay the 1 extra spell to try to destroy this thing, but then have the shield counter fall off and then try to destroy it again? Doubt. Press X to doubt. 1/1 counters? Just pick that and put a 1/1 counter on everything. You have a double strike counter on something? Boom, put that on everything. You got an indestructible counter on something? You get the gist. And at its worst, it's just instant speed, put one of your counters on everything else. So if you're in the counter deck, that's not. But you're not going to use it like that. You're probably going to just like wait till you get enough creatures, and then if you top deck this thing or have it in hand, just windmill slam it down during your main phase and just be like, hey, all of my stuff has shield counters on it now. Good luck trying to deal with that. She's actually fantastic in the new Final Fantasy Titus Yuna's Guardian because he cares about counters a lot. And guess what? This is dishing them out to everybody. Fantastic card, just under 10,000 decks. Let's get it over. Moving on to Reap. This one's really interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how powerful it is. Seeing that Commander is a 4-player format, I think this does have some potential to be played. For 1 and a green at instant speed, return any number of target cards in your graveyard to your hand. You cannot choose more cards than the number of black permanents target opponent controls. So what are the odds there's going to be a black deck at the table? I would say pretty freaking high. Like, I would say black is easily either the most or the second most played color in the format. You're probably going to see 1, if not 2, if not 3 black decks. A lot of tables will just have 4 decks with black in it. It's not unlikely that you'll be paying 2 mana with Reap to get a whole grip of cards back from your graveyard to your hand. And that's not even to mention some of the cooler interactions with stuff like Rendmaw Creaking Nest, who gives each opponent a 2/2 black bird. That means each opponent has a black creature now, so then you can Reap right off the bat after playing Rendmaw. Get 3 cards back from your graveyard. That's just assuming there's not another black deck at the table. It's really good. Same kind of idea, you could run this enhanced Slayer Zealot because he's dishing out 2/2 zombies to your opponents, and yeah, guess what? That's going to make our Reap get us back way more cards. So you've got those 2 commander choices if you're wanting to run Reap specifically, but if your playgroup's got a lot of black in it, honestly, throw a Reap in there, dude. Even if not, I'm curious to see how often Reap is useful, like out in the wild when you're playing with like random pods. Because I feel like odds are there's going to be multiple black decks at the table, and odds are this is going to be a regrowth on steroids at instant speed. So give it a shot. Moving on to Afara's Dispersal. This is a super straightforward one that I just think is good, and I want to talk about it because I'm probably going to put it in my Taval deck. For 2 and a blue, we get an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it's targeting an attacking creature. Return target creature to its owner's hand, and then Surveil 2. Honestly, I don't mind this. Like, it's just unsummon because you're only going to be bouncing something if it's attacking you pretty much most of the time anyway, and I kind of like that politically because you can choose to use this for 3 to just bounce something and use it as removal. But if you want to get that sweet, sweet value, this can be a 1-drop instant speed, bounce a creature back to someone's hand, which is just unsummon, but then Surveil 2 stapled onto it. If unsummon was 1 blue, bounce a creature to someone's hand, Surveil 2, I would run that in all of my decks that have blue in it because I love graveyard decks, and that would just be a staple in all those decks. And seeing as this is in 8,000 decks, I think a lot of people agree with me that this is actually a really powerful effect. Give it a shot. If you're in a graveyard theme, I think take out one of your removal pieces for this. Try her out. Moving on to Aether Flash. This one's really interesting. I don't know how extremely powerful it is. I think it's pretty good though. Like seeing how many small utility creatures there are. Well, let's read the card first. For 2 and 2 red, we get an enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, Aether Flash deals 2 damage to it. So, someone plays Avenger of Zendikar, yeah, all those plant tokens are dying. Someone tries to play Scoot Swarm, yeah, all those Scoot Swarms are going to get smoked before anything happens with them. That's the obvious stuff. But I think there's a lot of creatures being played in the format that this is going to really put a damper on. Deathrite Shaman, yeah, you can't play that anymore. Esper Sentinel, you can't play it anymore. Orcish Bowmasters, yeah, gone. Not to even mention, this will still lower the health of any creatures that are entering by 2, so if you're in like a pinger deck, this is actually a pretty good way to like lower some of those 3/3s within pinging range. All in all, interesting card, not 100% sure on how powerful it is. I'm sure there's some decks out there that this goes really hard in. The aforementioned Hansk Slayer Zealot that gives your opponents 2/2 zombies, this would be pretty good because your opponents now don't get 2/2 zombies and you immediately get the draw 3 from Hansk. Or the aforementioned Atla Palani, as your eggs will immediately take 2 as well. This could also be pretty useful in like an enrage deck where you're trying to get your creatures to take damage. Pretty interesting. I think this could have some different places it could slot in. Let me know what you think. And moving on to our final criminally underplayed card, we've got Saradoc, Master of Buckland, who is 3 and a white for a 2/4. Whenever Saradoc enters, or another non-token creature with power 2 enters, create a 1/1 halfling creature token. Tap 2 other untapped halflings. Saradoc gets +2/+0 and lifelink until end of turn. This is one of those cards where I feel like the second ability is so, you know, I'm gonna be honest, not strong, that you forget how strong the first part of it is. Tapping 2 of your halflings to give him 2/0 and lifelink could be utilized and be pretty decent in getting you back in a game, getting a decent sized lifelinker. But the fact that every non-token 2 or less CMC creature you're playing gives you a 1/1 built in with it. I have a ton of cards sitting around waiting for a token deck list, and this is, yet again, another one that's going to be added to that pile because I really like that effect. Nothing I love more than creatures coming in with built-in backup, and this just gives it to all of your small creatures. But with that brings us to the end. Underplayed, criminally so, cards that you guys could maybe start playing. We could get those numbers above 10K. I would love to make a follow-up video like a month out and just see if we can actually get these numbers to raise to above 10K. So if you want to throw any of these cards into like your Mox Field list, that will raise this number on EDHREC, because all it's looking at is all of the online deck making tools and seeing if the card's used in any list. So all it really takes is you just adding one of these cards to your deck list, and that will up this number by 1. So we're gonna probably check back in like a month and see if these cards actually go up thanks to these videos. Add them to your deck list if you think you could use these. Like I was saying at the beginning of the video, if you want to become a patron and show some additional support to me and the channel, it starts as low as $1. We have upgraded the perks, where we've got some actually pretty cool benefits now. I'll be uploading some Touchgrass podcast content on there, which is just me talking to some of my friends, which will include some behind the scenes content of us like filming some gameplay, as well as $5 and up tiers gaining access to the gameplay early, and all of the tiers having a weekly message board directly to me where you can submit some of your favorite weekly cards like our boy Aaron did for this video. If you want to join the Discord, it is completely free. Links down below. We got like 250 plus nerds talking cards all the time there. It's a great time. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys next time.